Glue, I open a tavern and get Zhu Zhuqing drunk. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 Tang San's Despair. The Soul Guides of the Sun Moon Empire are really eye-opening for us. We should have more exchanges like this, Qian Renxue said with a smile. Prince Diao nodded and agreed, that's right. If the two continents don't intend to start a war, they should communicate more, understand each other, and be friendly neighbors instead of enemies. What do you think, Mr. Jin? They all looked at Jin Hongchen with a smile, and their eyes were shining with a playful light. After witnessing the battles of the Sun Moon Empire, they couldn't help but want to understand the Soul Guides. Anyone who sees the superiority of the Soul Guides can't sit idly by. This is a technology that must be mastered. If the Sun Moon Empire doesn't intend to communicate, then the only option is a Cold War. Jin Hongchen felt the pressure from Douluo Continent. He pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, exchange is a good thing. This time, we also saw the advantages of Douluo Continent. It would be great if we could learn from each other. When I go back, I will definitely do my best to promote this. That's great. Great. Then the Sun Moon Empire can establish an embassy in our Douluo Continent and get to know our country and customs in depth. Prince Diao said with a smile. He was a completely smiling tiger. What he meant was that if the Sun Moon Empire refused to cooperate, they would block the country and it would be difficult for the Sun Moon Empire to come to the tavern again. Jin Hongchen's eyes flashed, and he understood what the other party meant. Okay, Prince Diao really put forward a very constructive suggestion. After I go back, I will definitely mention it to His Majesty and promote this. Jin Hongchen smiled, without showing any abnormality. Several people were smiling tigers, looking harmonious, but in fact they were smiling with knives hidden in their hearts. The confrontation of such big figures was naturally nothing to watch. Therefore, everyone basically turned their eyes to Tang San. You know, Tang San is a celebrity in the tavern. He has successfully challenged the mortal wine several times before. No one can be stronger than him in terms of the number of times he has challenged it. Now he has borrowed 300,000 gold soul coins from the 7 treasures glazed tile sect to challenge the mortal wine for the 6th time. This is big news. Someone couldn't help but ask him, Tang San, didn't you say before that you would not challenge the mortal wine? Why did you go back on your word again? Tang San's face changed, and he said lightly, It's not for myself. But I want to rebuild the body for my teacher. Liu Chang'an was overjoyed when he heard this. Is he finally going to recover? Now only his neck can move. He is completely useless and not convenient at all. Tang San finally realized the difficulties of his teacher and wanted to restore his health. I can't wake up. I have to continue to pretend to be unconscious. In this way, I can preserve my image. It's not that I want Tang San to recover for me, but this child is so filial that he would rather be humiliated than let me recover. Liu Chang'an was moved and continued to pretend to be unconscious. After Tang San borrowed 300,000 gold soul coins from the 7 treasures glazed sect, he hid 3 bowls of earthly wine in front of him. He nodded to the water god in front of him, and regardless of the complicated looks of the crowd, he poured it directly into his mouth. After 3 bowls fell, he didn't say a word and didn't move at all. 10 seconds passed quickly. He survived. Seeing Tang San so strong, everyone's eyes were filled with regret. With such a firm will, Tang San's future should have been limitless. Unfortunately, he believed Liu Chang'an's nonsense and fell to this point. It's a pity. Now he is even replenishing Liu Chang'an. No, if it's just to let Liu Chang'an recover, just by wine. Tang San succeeded in that challenge before, and he saved up several fine wines. 9 Fengs figured out the strangeness. At this time, a ray of light flew out from Tang San's forehead, stopped in front of him, and condensed into a figure. The figure quickly solidified and became a living person, and everyone present was familiar with it. A powerful person from another world, Zhu Zhuqing. Everyone's faces changed drastically. Qian Renxue glared at Tang San, is this your teacher? Tang San nodded and said, yes, I have already worshipped him as my teacher. Liu Chang'an didn't wait for his body to recover, but heard something that made him angry. Hearing this, he immediately stopped pretending to be asleep and said in a hurry, Xiao San. What are you talking about? How can you have other teachers besides me? Tang San's face was calm, and he shook his head and said, Teacher, I didn't tell you that this new teacher, ha ha ha. I'm perfectly resurrected. It's worthy of being a tavern. Thank you, little kid, but I'm not your teacher. I lied to you before. You, kid, have a high soul strength, but your qualifications are too poor. Zhu laughed and shook his head at Tang San. Tang San's face turned pale in an instant. You kid, I don't know who fooled you. Not to mention your bloodliner, you've even gone astray and taken the wrong path in cultivation. There's no turning back, otherwise I'd really like to teach you a few exercises. Zhu continued to laugh. Tang San's face turned pale. The so-called wrong path probably refers to his martial soul becoming evil. Since he became an evil soul master, his Quantum Gong is almost unusable. Now hearing Zhu's judgment again, he knew he couldn't deceive himself anymore. Tang San's legs softened, and he fell backwards with Liu Chang'an, hitting the ground heavily. At this moment, his heart ached. Zhu ignored him and those who hated him, but came straight to Liu Chang'an, bent down and said, Boss, I saw you in that kid's memory. I should be able to get protection in the tavern, right? Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and said, Of course, the premise is that you must abide by the rules of the tavern. Of course. No one can respect the tavern more than me now. You are my reborn parents. Zhu knelt down directly in front of Liu Chang'an, but when his knees were about to hit the ground, he was stopped by a force. Liu Chang'an shook his head and said, It's over. Zhu stood up again after hearing this, and asked with a smile, Boss, do I still have a chance to return to the Great Continent? Challenging the Qian can satisfy all your wishes. In addition, when the branch opens, you can also, well, it happens that you can go back now. Liu Chang'an smiled and pointed to the back of the tavern. A large hole suddenly appeared on the wall, and a few seconds later, the wall was reshaped into a door. The door was open, and there was a green forest outside. Daitian walked in and said, Boss, this is a place next to the Monster Mountain range. There are many small villages nearby. I circled it a few times, exuding my aura, and told them about the opening of the tavern. Someone should be here soon. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and said with a smile, Thank you for your hard work. Next, we will start welcoming business. Battle Through the Heavens begins. Chapter 277 Great Continent. A back door suddenly appeared in the tavern, and when it was opened, another world appeared. Everyone present was very surprised. The back door was naturally behind that counter, and there were also tables and chairs behind the counter, so that the counter was in the middle. Someone walked behind that counter, and just after passing the dividing line of the counter, they suddenly exclaimed, It's so strange. I clearly walked behind that counter, but the boss was still facing us. Stupid. It must be the boss's great magic. In this way, no matter which side you come from, you're in front of the counter, which is convenient for management. In this way, there is actually no difference between front and back. I want to know, if we pass through the tavern to the Great Continent, do we also have to be restricted? Everyone had too many doubts, and they all looked at Liu Chang'an. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and smiled, Of course, those who cross the border through the tavern must be subject to a restriction and must not cause damage to the local area. While speaking, he deliberately glanced at Gilliana. Gilliana blushed and turned her head away. There was no doubt that this rule appeared because of her. When they went to the God Realm with the help of the tavern, they made a big fuss. Zhu ran to the door with a look of surprise and doubt. He was now completely convinced. The power of the tavern was definitely beyond the understanding of their Great Continent. The master of their Soul Palace, and even the Soul Clan behind them, were definitely not the opponents of the tavern. The appearance of such an unreasonable and powerful force would inevitably cause trouble. If the Soul Palace confronted, Zhu's face changed, and he hurriedly stopped at the door, secretly saying, I have to wait here. If someone from the Soul Palace comes, I can warn them. The tavern must not be offended. Zhu was on high alert. When the people of Douluo Continent saw him like this, their faces were not very friendly. And Tang San was angry and hostile. He was actually fooled. This guy who didn't keep his word. Xiao came to Tang San and said softly, Brother, you can still challenge the mortal wine. There is still a chance to redeem yourself. With your ability, you will definitely succeed in the challenge and return to the top. Tang San's face and gritted his teeth and said, No. I said I won't rely on the power of the tavern again. Liu Chang'an on his back looked uncertain, hesitating whether to dissuade Tang San. At least let the master recover his health. But, Tang San obviously wants to drag Liu Chang'an down with him, no one can have a good life. His life has been ruined by Liu Chang'an, so the two of them must not be separated in the future. Even if they die, they must die together, and no one can be alone. Xiao sighed and looked at Tang San with regret. Xiao, pour the eternal life wine 3 more times to irrigate your mother's soul ring, and her soul will be stable, and it won't be difficult for her to come out to see you. Bibi Dong suddenly said to Xiao. Xiao's eyes lit up, and she immediately looked at Tang San expectantly. Tang San has succeeded in the most challenges, and he didn't even choose the wine. Tang San showed an embarrassment and said, Xiao, I have accepted the favor of Zhu Zhuqing and will give him the choice of fine wine. So, Xiao's face turned pale and she looked at Tang San with great unfamiliarity. She never thought that Tang San would reject her expectations. In fact, Tang San has now entered an extreme state. Because of his promise, he has come to this point. And his heart has also implemented the idea of going all the way. No one can stop him from honoring his promise. Because he has only lived with Xiao for 6 years and has never experienced life and death in Anima, although he can die for Xiao now, he can't break his promise. I understand, Xiao smiled sadly. At this time, someone shouted, people are coming. People from Great Continent are coming. Yes, people from Great Continent are coming. Dozens of streamers came from all directions. They were still in the sky in the last second, and appeared in front of the tavern in the next moment. They came from different forces. But the aura of each person was extremely powerful. Standing together, it seemed that the space was distorted. A heavy atmosphere surrounded the tavern. Almost all of them were ocean. If it weren't for the blessing of the tavern, the people from the Douluo Continent would have been stunned except for a few people. Now, just looking at them, the people in the tavern couldn't help but feel palpitations. Seeing this, Zhu Zhuqing at the door immediately rushed out, shouting, Don't do it. Don't do it. Zhu Zhuqing's words surprised everyone present. Yuan, the patriarch of the ancient clan, looked at the powerful people of the Soul clan next to him in confusion and asked, Emperor Huntian, that's someone from your Soul clan, right? Why don't you let us do it? Isn't it said that they are powerful people from other worlds who are here to invade our Great Continent? Emperor Huntian looked calm, looked at Zhu Zhuqing who was running over, waved his hand, and shot out a red light. Bang! Zhu Zhuqing was instantly beaten into a ball of blood mist. Damn waste, wasting his great opportunity to harm other powerful people, it's not a pity to die. The patriarchs of various clans also came to their senses. Good guy, the bastards of the Soul clan are digging a pit again. Emperor Soul. You must give me an explanation. Yuan said angrily. The other strongmen of various tribes also glared at the group of Soul clan. Emperor Soul said indifferently, What explanation? Our people of Soul clan were indeed attacked by the tavern, and suffered heavy casualties. Could it be false? Now that Zhu Zhuqing said so, it is inevitable that he was bewitched. The dead duck is stubborn. The Thunder clan sneered. No one is willing to believe Emperor Soul now. This kid is holding back water. Yuan looked at the tavern. Without considering the mysterious strength, the appearance of the tavern is really just an ordinary tavern. He shouted. Does the owner of the tavern have the intention to compete for the Great Continent? No, just do business. Liu Chang'an said indifferently. Yuan nodded lightly and said to everyone, I can feel that the tavern has no will towards us. Fortunately, Zhu Zhuqing appeared, so we did not take action immediately, otherwise it would have caused a big mistake. The strongmen of various tribes nodded in agreement. Let's go in and take a look. Yuan suggested. So everyone entered the tavern. Entering the tavern and seeing the expanding space, the crowd was not surprised. They all immediately sensed the breath of Liu Chang'an in the crowd. However, they also immediately discovered that their Doki strength was gone. Many people changed color and hurriedly ran out of the tavern. After their strength was restored, their expressions calmed down. Don't be nervous. It's just that fighting and making trouble are not allowed after entering the tavern, so your strength is suppressed. Daitian looked at these extremely nervous people and exclaimed. Can the people of Great Continent be calm? They are all a top group of people in Great Continent, but in this tavern, their strength was directly suppressed. If the tavern wants to harm them, can they stop it? Even the Soul Emperor, who has always been forbearing, showed a look of surprise at this time. Chapter 278 Little Medical Fairy. The strong men in the Great Continent are not like the titled Douluo in the Douluo world, who are powerful and can even destroy their own continent. They are well informed and have clearer channels for promotion. At least becoming a Dowdy Pokong is not a legend, but there are still witnesses. With a higher vision, the more they know, the more shocked they are now. The existence of the tavern has exceeded their understanding. Will the tavern really not be detrimental to Great Continent? Everyone in Great Continent guessed so. Liu Chang'an saw their inner worries, but did not explain. Time reveals people's hearts. Everyone, the tavern rules are on the wall, you can read it yourself. In addition, if you go to another world through the tavern, you must be bound by the tavern and must not take the initiative to attack the other world. Liu Chang'an added. Everyone in Great Continent nodded slightly and immediately scanned the tavern. Although their strength was sealed, their eyesight could still see some things. For example, those people in Douluo Continent, earthen chickens, clay pots, and dog ears. Soon, the strong men in Great Continent finished reading the rules. Yuan asked in confusion. Boss, can any wish come true? What if it is to break through to become a Dowdy, can it be done? Of course it can. Moreover, Dowdy is only the highest realm for you, and there are many levels above it. You become Dowdy and break through the realm, and there is a wider world. Liu Chang'an smiled. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Everyone present was shocked. Dowdy. The realm they dreamed of, isn't it the pinnacle of the world? Han Tiandi immediately clasped his fists, with a flash of urgency in his eyes, and asked. Excuse me, boss, what realm is above Dowdy? The world where your Great Continent is located is the Great Thousand World. Practicing in the Great Thousand World depends on spiritual energy. Above you, there is the realm of heavenly supreme, spiritual products, immortal products, and holy products. Above this, there is the highest realm called the Lord. Liu Chang'an explained. May I ask what realm the boss is in now? A strong man from Great Continent asked curiously. Liu Chang'an smiled but said nothing. Daitian said calmly. How can you guess the boss's realm? Don't be too ambitious. The worldly wine can satisfy all your wishes, but it still depends on whether you have the will. Thank you for your teaching. May I ask your name, sir? Emperor Huntian bowed to Daitian and smiled. Daitian. Your aura is very familiar to me. Before, a group of people with a similar aura to yours came to trouble me, but I defeated them. Are they all people? Daitian raised his eyebrows and asked. Yes, Mr. Daitian, don't be offended. I have punished them. Emperor Huntian said with a smile. Daitian looked at him calmly, without commenting, obviously not caring about such things. The strong men of the Great Continent knew the rules, but none of them were willing to come out to challenge. After all, there must be a punishment for failure, but what kind of punishment? No one wants to be the first guinea pig to come out. Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly. With stronger strength and longer life, he became more courageous, or more stable, and was unwilling to take risks. They were not thin-skinned, and none of them were embarrassed. What could Liu Chang'an say? Visitors are guests. Even if they dare not challenge Chen Shijiu, he can't drive these people out, although the people of Douluo Continent must want him to do so. On the second day, the news of the birth of the tavern had already spread in a small range in the Great Continent. The strong men of the Great Continent were really patient and challenged everyone. And the guests of Douluo Continent also deliberately endured and did not challenge to dispel their doubts. It was around noon when the nearby mercenary group discovered the tavern. The sudden appearance of a tavern in the deep mountains and old forests must be curious, so they came in to find out. I'm Muley from the Wolf-Head mercenary group. A young man shouted loudly. Seeing that there was no danger in the tavern, more than a dozen mercenaries entered. And the most eye-catching person in the mercenary group was a woman. The woman was wearing a pale white dress. Although her appearance was not stunning, she was a rare beauty. Her smiling face exuded a fresh and ethereal temperament. This unique temperament instantly increased the woman's charm. Her willow waist, which was not even as thin as a hand, was tied with a green belt. The waist was extremely slender and weak. Little medical fairy, let's rest here and continue to look for herbs. Muley said with a smile. Little medical fairy smiled gently and nodded slightly. Muley shouted, Hey! Where's the waiter? Come here quickly. We need to order food. You can't order food here. Erming said in a muffled voice. You can't order food? Then what kind of tavern do you run? Muley snorted coldly and questioned. The little doctor suddenly grabbed Muley's arm, shook his head, pointed at the rules on the wall, and said, Young captain, this tavern seems to be different. Let's not satisfy your wishes. You dare to put out something that deceives 3-year-old children. It's really ridiculous. Muley sneered. Ha ha ha, I haven't fought for a long time, and finally I met a blind man. Erming suddenly laughed and walked towards Muley. Muley frowned and said, "What do you want to do, huh? Where's my fighting spirit?" Muley realized that he was not in the right state. Seeing Erming approaching him, he hurriedly shouted to his men, "Help me stop him." A group of minions wound up. Erming stomped his feet, and all the minions fell down. A group of blind people dared to act wild in the tavern. Erming kicked all the minions on the ground out of the tavern one by one. Soon he walked in front of Muley, and Muley's face turned pale. I'm the young master of the Wolf-Head mercenary group. If my father finds out, you will not have a good ending. They should all know my father's bad reputation. Muley quickly pointed at Emperor Huntian and others and said. Erming smiled. Although he didn't know the specific identities of Emperor Huntian and others, they must be the top masters in this world to be able to rush here in an instant. And Muley came from a nearby town mercenary group. How could he compare with Emperor Huntian and others? Erming grabbed Muley's collar like a chicken, lifted him up, and then left the tavern. Xiao Yixen looked at this scene in surprise. She felt that the tavern didn't seem to be a lie. Then, she also wanted to complete her body. Xiao Yixen was born with a congenital evil poisoned body. The cultivation method of the evil poisoned body was different from that of ordinary people. They did not need to practice fighting spirit for many years. If they wanted to become stronger, they only needed to eat poison. Their evil poisoned bodies would transform the poison contained in the poison into a very special poison fighting spirit in a strange way. The more toxic the poison, the more beneficial it would be to their strength improvement. But she is difficult to control now, and there is a danger of poison gas leaking. Chapter 279 Sisters. Senior, I want to ask you, can a successful challenge really satisfy your wishes? Xiao Yixen raised a timid smile and asked Erming, who was walking back. Erming grinned and said, "Of course. But the worldly wine in our tavern is not so easy to challenge successfully, and it also requires courage." As he said that, Erming pointed to Emperor Huntian and others and said, "Do you see these people? They are all the top masters of your Douluo Continent, but now they don't even have the courage to challenge. Your little girl, do you want to be the first?" Emperor Huntian and others remained calm and didn't care about Erming's contempt at all. Xiao Yixen glanced at them and was shocked. When she came in, she felt that these people were very scary. It was a natural intuition. Now that Erming said this, her idea was more determined. And the fact that a tavern can gather so many masters shows that there is still mystery. "I want to challenge." Xiao Yixen nodded vigorously. The maid next to her was Yan, who walked towards her and said with a smile, "Little sister, I need 3 gold coins." Xiao Yixen took out 3 gold coins from her pocket without hesitation and handed them to Yan with both hands. She said sweetly, "Sister, you are so beautiful. Little sister, you are so sweet. You're prettier than your sister. If you drink the fine wine in our tavern, you should become more beautiful. And don't worry, no one dares to bully you in the tavern." Yan presented Xiao Yixen with 3 bowls of earthly wine, floating in front of Xiao Yixen, and she touched Xiao Yixen's head again. Xiao Yixen smiled gently. She didn't know what being treated like this by the tavern maid would bring her. It won't be long before even the ancient tribes of Douluo Continent dare not despise her when they meet her. Xiao Yixen picked up the first bowl of wine and exhaled, "Then I will drink it." "You must be firm in your mind." Yan nodded and smiled. Xiao Yixen drank up the bowl of earthly wine, followed by the second and third bowls. The strong men of Douluo Continent all stared at her. Because their strength was suppressed in the tavern, their perception was greatly weakened, but it was not difficult to sense Xiao Yixen's physique, the evil poisoned body. It is still difficult to subdue this physique, especially under the suppression of external forces. Some of the strong men here can do it, but that is at the cost of destroying the evil poisoned body, which is not considered superior. And if you want to perfectly exert the evil poisoned body and play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses, you have to let Xiao Yixen gradually control it, which takes time. So, what kind of power will the tavern use? Everyone is looking forward to it. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. 10 seconds is very short and very long. Xiao Yixen was supported by Yan, confused. After 10 seconds, the drunkenness that made her sleep quickly dissipated and turned into the purest energy. And her body emitted a faint purple light, and after a moment, the light gradually dissipated. Xiao Yixen looked at the changes in her body, her face full of surprise. My poisoned body won't explode again. Yes, you have to believe in the power of the tavern. What is your wish? As long as you succeed in the challenge, it will be 100% realized. Yuan said with a smile. Xiao Yixin still couldn't believe it. At this time, Yuan said with a smile. Yes, little girl, your evil poisoned body is now fully developed, and there will be no more accidents. The tavern is really amazing, beyond my expectation. Xiao Yixin nodded slightly. Yes, she can fully master her evil poisoned body and knows many related skills. From now on, her evil poisoned body will never explode for no reason and hurt others. Xiao Yixin's eyes were filled with tears. She suddenly hugged Yuan and choked up. Thank you, sister. Yuan gently patted Xiao Yixin's back with a look of pity on her face. I also use poison, and I was troubled by poison before. Now I meet you, I'm really happy from the bottom of my heart. How about this, we recognize each other as sisters? Yuan said in a gentle tone. Okay, sister, Xiao Yixin agreed immediately. Yuan smiled and said, then you must remember that my sister is Yuan, and she is a maid in the tavern. You won't look down on my sister, will you? How could that be? Xiao Yixin shook her head immediately. Little girl, don't be fooled by Miss Yu. The status of a maid in a tavern is extremely respected. Even the top masters in your Great Continent have to give face. They dare not be disrespectful. Shinhei interrupted with a smile. Emperor Huntian and others were teased by Shinhei, but they did not show any displeasure. With the support of the mysterious tavern, they really dared not be disrespectful to the maid. What Shinhei said was not without reason. Xiao Yixin was stunned for a moment, looking at Yuan in surprise, and said in a daze, Then my sister is such a noble person, and she recognized me as a sister. What noble? Don't listen to Mr. Shinhei's jokes. He is just teasing me. I'm just a maid. Yuan shook her head and said with a smile. Xiao Yixin could feel that what Shinhei said was probably true. The magic of the tavern is really unpredictable. Brother Gu, you are always straightforward, why don't you set an example first? Emperor Huntian retracted his gaze from the little medical fairy and said to Yuan. Yuan glanced at Emperor Huntian and shook his head slightly. I don't have any wishes yet. In fact, for strong men like them, they are more cautious. What they value is not what they will gain, but what they will lose in the challenge of the worldly wine. What a pity. I think about it, such a magical place is the tavern, but because of its remote location, there are no customers. It is really a loss for our Great Continent. Why don't you and I spread the news? Emperor Huntian suggested. That's great. Yuan and other strongmen nodded. So, the group of clan leaders left the tavern together again, leaving only 1 or 2 clansmen to observe the situation. The people of Douluo Continent all laughed when they saw this. The strongmen in the Great Continent are much stronger than us, but their courage is really poor. Yes, it's been 2 days, and no one has challenged us. I don't know what they're afraid of. We in Douluo Continent challenged them right away. ... Looking at these people's laughter and talk, Bibi Dong grabbed Liu Chang'an's sleeve and asked curiously, are those people really strong? How many of them can I beat? You? Liu Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. In the previous battle against Zhuqing, Bibi Dong's strength was permanently improved, equivalent to a 1-star Doshan. Now that the strong men from all races have arrived, almost all of them are Doshans, and Bibi Dong is just at the bottom of the list. Bibi Dong knew the answer when she saw Liu Chang'an's smile. She bit her lower lip and rolled her eyes at Liu Chang'an charmingly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 280. Becoming famous in the Great Continent. After leaving the tavern, Emperor Huntian and other clan leaders investigated the tavern through various channels, but found nothing. The tavern appeared out of thin air and there was no record of it. How could they have gained anything? At the same time, they did not break their promises and really promoted the magic of the tavern. They even jointly guaranteed and endorsed the authenticity of the tavern. As a result, the entire Great Continent was boiling. Yunlan sect. After receiving this news, the old sect master Yunshan, who was in seclusion, came out and communicated with the current sect master Yunun. Yunun shook her head and said, Teacher, a tavern that can fulfill all wishes is too ridiculous. How can such a thing exist? Yunshan remained silent, as if thinking about something. Nalan Yanran said cautiously, If it is true, I will ask Grandpa to withdraw the engagement that I had previously agreed with the old man of the Xiao family, so that I don't have to make a 3-year agreement. Now Grandpa won't even see me. Yun glared at Nalan Yanran and said helplessly, Yanran, you are too impulsive. How can you go to the Xiao family alone to cancel the engagement? You should have told me first. Yun looked helpless. What Nalan Yanran did was really unkind. Even if the arranged marriage was wrong, there were many ways to cancel the engagement. Why did she have to use the most domineering means? It was like the Yunlan sect bullying the weak and ruining its reputation. Nalan Yanran lowered her head and dared not say a word. Yunjin said, Yuna, it's not Yanran's fault. How can a waste be worthy at the genius of my Yunlan sect? The marriage should be cancelled in this way. If I hadn't been in seclusion, I would have done it more directly than her. Teacher, this is too arrogant, Yun said helplessly. Arrogant? Ha, the status of our Yunlan sect in the Jiama Empire can be even more arrogant. Yunjin sneered. Nalan Yanran looked at Yunjin, who supported her with surprise, and said happily, Grandmaster is so good. Teacher, Grandmaster said so, support me. Yunun shook her head helplessly. She respected her teacher and didn't want to disobey Yunjin. Yunjin said again, as for the matter of the tavern, it is probably true. Because the person who spread the news is from the Soul Palace in Thongzhou, he is very powerful and will not deceive us. Yuna, get ready, our Yunlan sect will go there on a certain day. Yes. Yunun replied. Jiama Empire Palace. Jie Xingtian, the strongest man in the royal family and the actual controller, also received the news from the tavern. He did not call the two princesses to his side, but said straight to the point, Yoi, you are the most outstanding descendants of my royal family and the purest in heart. The authenticity of the tavern is questionable, but it is probably true, so I plan to take you there. Jie Xingtian said with a smile. Yoi is the eldest princess, already an adult, with a steady mind. She said, Grandpa, why don't you take more people with you? We are still very young and can't drink much. Yoi is still a little girl, and she laughed. Isn't that simple? It must be because we are the best, right, Grandpa? Jie Xingtian smiled, rubbed Yoyu's head, and nodded, yes, you two are the best little ones in our royal family. You must witness this event that may determine the future of the royal family. Moreover, if it is true, we must also be on guard against the Yunlan sect and not attract their attention. The power of the Yunlan sect is too strong and must be contained as soon as possible. The old man Yunshan is in seclusion, and the current sect leader Yun is an honest child with a poor sense of smell. He may not take the tavern seriously, so we must act immediately. Jie Xingtian looked determined. The two princesses also understood the importance of the matter and nodded vigorously. We will definitely succeed. Shimo City on the edge of the Taga Desert. In a store selling maps. The door was closed. The white-haired boss inside was talking to a shrewd man who looked like a big profiteer. Next to him was a gorgeous woman in a red ginseng. Brother Hai must have heard about it, right? According to our intelligence network, the force that passed on this news is very strong and has a high credibility. Ten Shanwai said in a deep voice. Bibi Dong nodded slightly and said, do you think that Tavern can unlock my seal? Since it is to fulfill all wishes, it can naturally be done. Moreover, there are rumors that the disappearance of the Snape tribe is because of a tavern. If it is true, then unlocking Brother Hai's seal is inevitable. Ten Shanwai said excitedly. Poseidon pondered for a moment, and a complex look flashed in his eyes. If his wish can really be fulfilled, then the strongest expectation in his heart is definitely not to restore his strength, but to revive Butterfly. Bibi Dong said in a deep voice. I will go. Let Yafei go with Brother Hai. Yafei is the most outstanding child of our Whittle family. No one can be better than her in socializing with people. Ten Shanwai said, pointing to the beautiful woman beside him. Okay. Bibi Dong agreed very readily. Then we will wait for good news from Brother Hai. Ten Shanwai smiled. Wutan City, Xiao family. Ha ha ha, there is always a way out. The tavern may help my son regain his talent. Xiaozhen laughed. This, patriarch, you don't want to go to the tavern, do you? It's too far, and it sounds unreliable to realize any wish. You can't leave this big family behind. Yes, the distance is so far, and our relationship with Yunlan sect has broken down. What if you want to go, let the tribe go and check whether it is true first? The elders dissuaded him one after another, and they didn't want Patriarch Xiaozhen to take risks. The clan leader Xiao Wu shook his head and said, "No, it's about my son, I must go. And if I let the clan members go, if they encounter danger, I will feel guilty. I have decided to take Xiao Yan with me, father and son, and go." The elders were all panicked. After a moment, Xiao Yan was brought into the hall and learned of his father's decision. Xiao Yan's expression changed, and he was moved but also a little helpless, because he already knew the reason for his declining talent, and now he had a plan to save it, and he didn't need to find other ways. Moreover, it was absurd to think about fulfilling all wishes. "Uncle Xiao, can you take me with you?" Xiao Zuna suddenly said. Xiao Zun was stunned for a moment. "Zuna, the journey is long, this is not a good place." Xiao Zuna smiled sweetly and nodded. "I know Uncle Xiao, but my family wrote to me and asked me to go to the tavern. It will be safer to follow Uncle Xiao, right?" Okay. Xiao Zun's eyes flashed with joy. Xiao Zuna's identity is strange, and even Zuna's family has received such instructions, which means that the tavern may not be that simple. Chapter 281 Yun. When the three disciples of Yunlan sect arrived at the tavern was already booming. Some people had indeed succeeded in that challenge and realized their wishes, and the fine wine they chose also made the people present taste the sweetness. Word spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. Everyone had the idea of not admitting defeat. You can succeed in the challenge, why can't I? So the tavern's business began to boom. When they were more than a mile away from the tavern, Yun looked at the lively scene in front of the tavern and sighed. It seems that the tavern is really strange. Many people were carried out, and there was even a Douang among them. Yunchen was silent and suddenly stopped. Yun and Nalan Yanren looked at Yunchen curiously. "Master, Grandmaster, what's wrong with you?" Yunchen came back to his senses, suddenly laughed, and said in a deep voice, "The so-called tavern can satisfy your wishes, it must be true. Even those strong people have to follow their rules, which shows how powerful it is. At least, it is easy for our Yunlan sect to dominate the Jiama Empire and for me to break through the Dou Zone." Yunchen laughed heartily. He had contacts with the Soul Palace and once met a Soul Palace strongman. The man's invincible style left him an indelible impression. But now, the strong man who was invincible in his heart was actually honest in the tavern. There was no trace of the arrogance of the past. How could such a tavern easily fool people? "Hurry up and go in." Yunchen laughed. The master and his apprentices entered the tavern. The tavern, which was larger than the outside, did not cause them to exclaim. After entering the door, the three of them observed the environment first. Yunchen looked directly at the rules described on the wall with a serious expression. Yun glanced and caught a glimpse of a beautiful red figure. She was stunned for a moment and murmured, "Queen Medusa is here too? And she looks very familiar." Nalan Yanren didn't think too much. She picked interesting ones to look at. Suddenly, she noticed a gaze that was hard to ignore. Turning her head, she saw a plain-looking boy with a gloomy temperament. She frowned and instinctively disliked him. He gave her the feeling that he looked a bit like her ex-fiancé Xiao Yan. They are all destined protagonists. Tang San was indeed observing her. He was directly sentenced to death by the Blood River, but Tang San did not give up. As the protagonist, he was like an indestructible cockroach. How could he give up easily? Since there was no way in Douluo Continent, there might be a way in Diki Continent. And staying in the tavern meant meeting more powerful people, and maybe he could get some advice from them. Before, the powerful people from various families gathered, but Tang San did not act rashly. He felt very clearly that those people were not easy to deal with. In front of them, he was just a small ant. Could they care about him? And the three people who came in now, especially the beautiful woman, gave him a particularly strong feeling. This is the woman who is destined to have a strong connection with him, the protagonist. Xiao Yan is the protagonist, and he is also the protagonist. Tang San was restless, hesitating whether to go over to make friends, or wait for the opportunity. Liu Chang'an on his back was drowsy, because his body was too weak and his spirit began to wane. Now he doesn't talk about cultivating a genius to prove himself. Facts have proved that there are no useless martial spirits in his mouth, only useless spirit masters. Well, just listen for fun. He only wants one thing now, to recover his health. Unfortunately, Tang San's brain seems to be stubborn, and he refuses to let him recover no matter what. Liu Chang'an still can't give up his face and let Tang San help him find a tavern to recover. After all, it was his fault that Tang San fell into this state. "Yanren, what are you looking at?" Yun found that something was wrong with the disciple and asked curiously. Nothing, I just think this place is so magical." Teacher, look, those people challenged the earthly wine, and after drinking 3 bowls, they didn't even last 3 breaths, and they were drunk. What kind of fine wine can have such a strong effect? Nalan Yanran said with a smile. Yun shook her head and said, don't underestimate this earthly wine. Look over there, it's the famous Dou Wang in the Warcraft mountain range, but he still got drunk and only lasted for 3 seconds, while the other unknown person, whose strength must not be higher than the Dou Wang, lasted for more than 6 seconds. It's a strong desire, they all lack this intensity. Yunjin said with a smile. Yun was puzzled and said, strong desire? How strong a desire must be to realize a wish? The tavern doesn't seem to have quantified this, and we don't know the specific requirements. Everyone's wishes are different, and the difficulty is naturally different, and I am destined to succeed. Yunjin said confidently. Teacher, I think we should be safe and observe for a few more days. Yun hesitated. That's right, but I'm going to ask an acquaintance first. He should know something. Yunjin said with a smile. Yun was stunned for a moment. She had never seen the teacher smile so easily. Yunjin took a step and walked towards Queen Medusa. Yun's face changed. No wonder the teacher smiled. It turned out that he wanted to see Queen Medusa. Queen Medusa's reputation was resounding throughout the Grimmer Empire and other surrounding areas. The teacher was once a De Huang. It is said that he even went to the Snape tribe in the Taga Desert to see the beauty. Looking at it now, it should be true. Yunjin strode to Kailing, smiled slightly, and asked, Queen Medusa, I haven't seen you for many years. I wonder if you still remember me. Kailing glanced at him coldly and said indifferently, I don't know you. Stay away from me. Yunjin's smile froze on his face. People around him seemed to be looking at him. His face became uglier and a hint of anger emerged. At this time, Bibi Dong suddenly smiled and said, don't do anything in the tavern, or you'll be punished. And the woman in front of you is the most beautiful woman in the world named by Liu Chang'an. Isn't that right, boss? Bibi Dong looked at Liu Chang'an with a smile, and there was a hint of sadness in her words. Obviously, she still had resentment about Liu Chang'an's ranking. Liu Chang'an had a blank expression and didn't care at all. Yunjin was stunned for a moment, not quite understanding what Bibi Dong meant. Could it be that Queen Medusa has a boyfriend? How many people would faint from tears? You are. Yunjin looked at Bibi Dong in confusion. Bibi Dong smiled slightly and said, don't worry about who I am. If you want a challenge, the maid next to you can provide you with earthly wine. Bibi Dong's indifferent attitude made everyone dare not despise her. Especially since she just mentioned too little about the tavern owner, maybe she had an affair with the tavern owner. After all, with a woman as charming as Bibi Dong by his side, how could he resist making a move? Chapter 282 Tang-san welcomes. The attentive people in the Great Continent quickly noted 2 points. The tavern owner once selected the most beautiful women, and Queen Medusa ranked first. According to Bibi Dong's attitude, Queen Medusa and the tavern owner had an ambiguous relationship. In short, they can't afford to offend. Although it was a pity, the strong men in the Great Continent did not show much disappointment. People who practice cultivation, especially the strong, don't pursue beauty much when they get older. Otherwise, based on Queen Medusa's previous reputation, she would have become the forbidden delicacy of a strong man. How could she still live a stable life now? Bibi Dong gently touched Liu Chang'an's arm, looked at him with a smile, and asked with a smile, how is it, is what I did to your liking? Now, no one dares to hit Queen Medusa. Liu Chang'an frowned and said, what are you thinking about? Bibi Dong curled her lips and said, I don't believe you don't have any thoughts in your mind. Queen Medusa is such a beauty that even women find it difficult to remain calm. You are not abstinent, on the contrary, woo-woo-woo. Liu Chang'an snapped his fingers, and Bibi Dong's mouth closed. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open her mouth to speak. Now, her ears were quiet. Bibi Dong raised her hand to hit Liu Chang'an's arm. Liu Chang'an looked at her calmly, and she didn't dare to hit him anymore, and glared at Liu Chang'an fiercely. Bibi Dong knew clearly that if she really hit him, Liu Chang'an, a straight man, would definitely punish her. Many people were observing their interaction. Although Liu Chang'an didn't give Bibi Dong a good look, this kind of playfulness and the way of getting along with each other still made everyone dare not look down on Bibi Dong. Yunjin retracted his gaze. Speaking of it, he had not yet fully adapted to the change of identity from the leader of a sect, a high and mighty existence, to a small person who had to pay attention to the thoughts of others. Since even the peerless masters of the Soul Palace abide by the rules of the tavern, it means that the tavern owner is definitely a stronger existence. Here, you should still be humble. Yunjin sighed and was about to call the maid who passed by. Yun interrupted him. Teacher, are you really going to challenge? Of course, my wish to be promoted to Dozone is stronger than anyone else. Yunjin said confidently. Besides, we have nothing to refer to here, no need to persuade anymore. Yunjin shook his head and looked a little impatient. Yun sighed. She was very strong outside, but she softened when facing the people she cared about. At this time, Nalan Yanran suddenly said, Teacher, Grandmaster, let me challenge the mortal bar first. Even if I fail, the punishment will not be too severe. Explore the way for Grandmaster. Yun was silent for a while. Yanran, ha, good disciple, since you have such filial piety, Grandmaster will not spoil the fun. Just do as you say. Yunjin laughed. Silence. Erming said coldly. Yunjin immediately stopped talking, his face embarrassed, secretly annoyed. People under the eaves have to bow their heads, and even laughing is not allowed. No one to the tavern is not like an ordinary tavern, there is no smoke and fire, and you can't even shout. And there is not much alcohol on the table. What kind of tavern is this? Yunjin suppressed his anger and looked at Nalan Yanran. Nalan Yanran bought 3 bowls of mortal wine and poured them into her stomach without saying a word. Then she widened her eyes, leaned on Yun, and waited quietly for the drunkenness to rise. My wish is to make Grandpa recover. Nalan Yanran thought firmly. 10 seconds later, Nalan Yanran's drunken eyes suddenly regained clarity. She stood up from Yun's body, with an unbelievable look in her eyes, and said, So the difficulty of the challenge lies here. It's incredible, Yanran, what happened? Yunjin asked in a deep voice. I entered a reincarnation. Inside, Nalan Yanran explained the hardship she encountered. To challenge the worldly wine, you must have the courage to face the challenge. Yunjin nodded slightly and said, Logically, you succeeded in that challenge, but you were thousands of miles away. How do you know that your grandfather has recovered? Hey. That guy, I didn't like you the first time I saw you when you walked in. Now I hear you say this again. I tell you, never doubt the ability of the tavern. The golden crocodile Douluo of Douluo Continent shouted to Yunjin. Yunjin was stunned for a moment, and exclaimed, I don't doubt the tavern. If I doubted it, I wouldn't have come all the way here. It's better not. With the boss's realm, I won't deceive you. Do you think saving someone is a big deal for the boss? Resurrection out of thin air is completely possible. The boss's power is especially beyond the imagination of you ordinary people. In short, just remember one thing, the boss is omnipotent. The people from the Douluo Continent next to him were talking at the same time, which made Yunjin feel annoyed. But now he didn't dare to reveal himself for the sake of caution, and could only listen to their words. At this time, Tang-san walked in front of Yunjin and the other two. Senior, I am Tang-san from Douluo Continent, and I should be the person with the most successful challenges. I want to explain the Mortal Wine Challenge to you. After all, I still have a lot of experience. Tang-san smiled. Yunjin looked at him in surprise. Tell me, Tang-san began to explain in detail. Of course, he was transmitting the message. This kind of confidential and precious information must be sold to many people. If it was heard by outsiders, it would be a loss. Yunjin's self-confidence is unprecedentedly inflated now. Even Nalan Yanran can challenge successfully, how can he lose? Listening to Tang-san's explanation, his face is more confident. Okay, I understand. In the final analysis, it still depends on the persistence of your wish. Yes, Tang-san looked at Yunjin's attitude and had a bad feeling. Yunjin said, Boy, no matter what, I am very happy that you can come to provide me with these information. Tell me, what do you want? A touch of surprise flashed in Tang-san's eyes, and he hurriedly said, To be honest, Senior, I am from the Douluo Continent of the other world. Tang-san immediately revealed his situation. Soul Master talent? What a joke, we learn Doki here. And whether you have the talent to learn Doki, no one knows now. If you are willing, you can join the Yunlan sect. Yunjin said generously. Disciple is willing. Tang-san said immediately. Yunjin nodded slightly, looked at Tang-san with satisfaction, then called Dugyan and said, Miss, I want to challenge the mortal wine. Outside the tavern, the Xiao family father and son and Xiao Zuna came to the door. When they looked inside, they found Yunjin and the other two, and their faces became complicated. Xiao Zun looked at his son with concern. Xiao Yan regained his composure and shifted his gaze. Chapter 283. Xiao family. Father and son Yunqian drank 3 bowls of wine in a row, full of enthusiasm. He wiped his mouth and smiled. It's just a worldly wine, nothing more than this. His wild look naturally attracted many eyes. Even the pillar strongman in his heart, a Soul Clan master, looked over. Tang San patted his forehead, sighed, and transmitted his voice. Sect master, the old sect master is going to lose. What? Yun was stunned for a moment. The teacher was obviously still fine. At the 6th second, Yunjian's face suddenly turned red, his eyes were cloudy, and his body shook. After struggling for a moment, he still fell down. Tang San was the first to react and step forward to support Yunqian. How is it possible? The master is so powerful, how could he lose? Obviously I succeeded, Nalan Yanran said in astonishment. Tang San shook his head and said, challenging the worldly wine is not about cultivation, and cultivation will even increase the difficulty. You must have a strong desire and the will to bear this desire. The old sect master's wish is strong enough, but, is that so? Yun sighed lightly and shook her head helplessly. At this time, Tang San suddenly looked behind him and met the eyes of the father and son of the Xiao family who came in. To be precise, he was looking at Xiao Yan. The two looked at each other, and there seemed to be fire in their eyes. Although Tang San no longer had the fate of the protagonist, he could still feel that Xiao Yan seemed to be the same as himself, but now he had fallen, and this feeling made him jealous. Xiao Yan was also looking at Tang San, even ignoring Nalan Yanran. From Tang San's eyes, he saw a strong rejection. At the same time, he didn't have any good feelings for Tang San, and naturally hated him. Brother Xiao Yan, what are you looking at? Xiao Zhu asked curiously. Nothing, just looking at someone I hate. Xiao Yan said with a smile. Xiao Zhu nodded slightly, and her eyes also swept over the masters of the ancient clan. In this ordinary-looking tavern, her family, the Topshi family and the Great Continent, actually had to sit honestly, which shows that their power is so strong. Perhaps it is really as the rumors say. Damn it. Nalan Yanran also saw Xiao Yan and his party, paid attention to Xiao Yan, and heard what Xiao Yan said. Hearing this, Tang San said to Nalan Yanran, Sister Yanran, do you know that boy? Yes, he is just an arrogant and annoying guy. He doesn't know how to respect you. Nalan Yanran said with anger on her face. Tang San nodded gently, okay, I understand, junior brother will avenge you. With that, Tang San strode over. Nalan Yanran and Yun were both stunned. Why is this boy so aggressive? He doesn't look like a person without sense of propriety, but they didn't know that Tang San's academy taught that those who dare not cause trouble are mediocre, especially since Tang San is now eager to get the attention of the Yulan sect and instinctively dislikes Xiao Yan. Yanran. Yun looked at Nalan Yanran helplessly. Nalan Yanran pouted and said, Master, I didn't know he would go out. Stop him first. Yun chased after him quickly. But in the tavern, especially the strong ones in the Great Continent, are more severely suppressed by the rules. Yun, a Dehuang-level strongman, is not faster than Tang San, and is even slower than Tang San who is proficient in footwork. Tang San had already arrived beside Xiao Yan and the other two. Did you make our senior sister Yanran angry? Tang San asked coldly while staring at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan frowned at Tang San and said, Who are you? What does it have to do with you whether I provoke her or not? You provoke our senior sister Yanran, of course I won't agree. If you were a man, come to the ring and fight me. If you lose, you must apologize to senior sister Yanran. Tang San said in a deep voice. I apologize to the unruly woman? Are you crazy? No matter what, I can't apologize. Xiao Yan said firmly. At the same time, he didn't understand the rules of the tavern, nor did he know the situation of the ring. Naturally, he would not easily agree to Tang San's challenge. After all, he had just found the way to recovery. Xiao Zhu narrowed her eyes and looked at Tang San, and said in a cold voice, If you want a challenge, I can be your opponent. Xiao Zhu frowned and looked at Yun who came from behind, and said in a cold voice, Master Yun can't even wait for 3 years. Or are you afraid that my son can succeed in the challenge and restore his former glory? Uncle Xiao, my teacher didn't provoke you. Nalan Yanran said indignantly. Yun pressed Nalan Yanran's shoulders and shook her head and said, Yanran, don't say anything more. We're the ones who were at fault this time. Tang San, apologize to Patriarch Xiao. You shouldn't have caused trouble without authorization. Tang San's face turned blue and red. He came here with good intentions to vent Nalan Yanran's anger, but the Patriarch asked him to bow his head and admit his mistakes. Tang San, who was corrupted and evil, was very angry at this moment. He almost couldn't help but ask Yun back. But he still held back, took a deep breath, bowed his head and admitted his mistakes, saying, "I'm sorry, I was impulsive." Tang San clenched his fists, his eyes were full of madness. The father and son of the Xiao family did not react at all, and were unwilling to pay attention to the Yunlan sect. Yun sighed secretly, she knew that this was the Yunlan sect's fault. At this time, a Soul Palace strongman came over and asked, "Are you from the Xiao family?" The Soul Palace strongman was intimidating without anger. He stood in front of the father and son of the Xiao family. Although he did not exude any momentum, he still made them feel uneasy instinctively. "Who are you?" Xiao Zhan asked back. The Soul Palace strongman sneered, did not answer, turned around and left. Xiao Zhan and Xiao Yan looked at each other, and a layer of haze shrouded their hearts. Xiao Zuna frowned. She was born in the ancient clan. Although she didn't stay for a long time, she also knew some basic information. The Soul Palace strongman should be a member of the Soul Clan. Paying attention to the Xiao family is likely to be detrimental to the Xiao family. "Uncle Xiao, I seem to have met an elder. I'll go and see." "Okay, be careful." Xiao Zhan smiled. Xiao Zuna ran to the strong man of the ancient clan. Xiao Zhan looked at her back, and a sense of expectation arose in his heart. Zuna's identity was very mysterious, and perhaps she could solve the current danger of the Xiao family. "Father, the rules of this tavern are too strange, but if that's the case, I think I should challenge the worldly wine myself. You are the patriarch, and no one knows what the punishment will be." Xiao Yan said seriously. Xiao Zhan laughed, rubbed Xiao Yan's head, and shook his head. "Aini, do you look down on a father's heart for his son's rise? No matter what challenge, I will succeed." Xiao Yan's eyes were sore. At this moment, he really couldn't help it and said, "Father, I have actually found a way to crack it. Girl, I want 3 bowls of worldly wine." Xiao Zhan held Xiao Yan's shoulders, took out 3 gold coins, exchanged for 3 bowls of worldly wine, and before Xiao Yan finished speaking, he had already poured them all into his stomach. Everyone looked at Xiao Zhan. Especially Nalan Yanran, with a complicated look in her eyes. If Xiao Yan really recovered his talent, Chapter 284 Xiao Yan vs Tang San. Xiao Yan looked at his father worriedly and reached out to support him. If his father failed and was punished, he would definitely feel guilty for the rest of his life. It was all his fault that he didn't have time to tell his father the truth. At this time, Yolao and Xiao Yan's ring transmitted a message, "Little guy, you have to be careful, it's better not to go out. That guy just now gave me a feeling of extreme danger. Maybe it was the people who were chasing me. If you are targeted by them, you can only run for your life." Xiao Yan's eyes flashed with emotion, and he wondered in his heart, "My father and I don't know him, although I don't know the reason. Your family is definitely not as simple as it seems. So, for the sake of safety, don't leave the tavern. That strong man is not someone you can deal with now, and even I might not be his opponent at the time." Yolao's voice was solemn. Xiao Yan nodded slightly, but he was quite annoyed. At this time, 10 seconds passed. Xiao Zhan's eyes immediately regained clarity. He shook his head and smiled freely. "This worldly wine is really strong. I almost got drunk, but why didn't my wish come true?" Xiao Zhan raised his doubts. Everyone present also looked at the tavern owner with curiosity. Liu Chang'an smiled slightly and said, "Your wish is to restore Xiao Yan's previous talent, right?" "Yes, boss." Xiao Zhan nodded. Liu Chang'an continued, "Xiao Yan's current talent is actually stronger than before. If you are determined to let him recover in the opposite direction, I can also help you achieve your goal." "What?" Xiao Zhan was stunned and looked at Xiao Yan in surprise. Xiao Yan scratched his face and said embarrassedly, "Yes, I was about to tell you just now, but you acted too quickly." Xiao Zhan grabbed Xiao Yan's shoulders, his face was overjoyed, and asked, "When? When is it?" "Great. Why didn't you tell your father, kid?" Xiao Yan said ashamedly. "I'm sorry, in fact, when I broke off the engagement, I had already found the reason why my fighting spirit disappeared and restored my talent. It seems that God will not destroy our Xiao family. My son has restored his talent back then, so he will have no worries about having a wife. What is there to fear about the 3-year agreement?" Xiao Zhan patted Xiao Yan's shoulder and laughed loudly, sweeping away the depression of the past. Xiao Yan smiled apologetically, but his heart was shrouded in a layer of haze. He was confident that he would have a smooth road in the future. But the problem now is that there is a terrifying strong man who has set his sights on their Xiao family. Does he really have time to grow up? Your Lao, if you recover all your strength, Xiao Yan asked in his heart. Your Lao said helplessly. Let's not talk about whether I can succeed or not. In my current state, can I drink alcohol? Xiao Yan was speechless. His teacher didn't even have a body now. Looking at Xiao Yan's expression, Nalan Yanren felt quite unhappy and thought that Xiao Yan was targeting her. In fact, she was not very comfortable when she heard the news. Although she would cancel the engagement even if Xiao Yan was still a genius, she still found it difficult to accept that Xiao Yan had regained his talent and would become her rival in the future. Tang San keenly noticed Nalan Yanren's emotions. His eyes flashed, and he suddenly stood up and said, Brother Xiao was once a genius. And he is about the same age as me. As for me, I came from the other world in your hearts, Douluo Continent. I don't have much talent, but I was lucky enough to join the Yulan sect. I want to aim my own strength. I wonder if I can invite Brother Xiao to the ring to learn from each other. Tang San. Don't be rude. Yun scolded lightly. Tang San explained, Master, you may have misunderstood. The arena in the tavern is amazing. You can fight to the death in the arena without any real injuries. In that case, I am willing to compete with him. Xiao Yan said with a smile. Tang San looked at Yun with a smile. In fact, Tang San couldn't wait to show his talent. Then please. Tang San extended his hand to invite and led the way. Xiao Yan gave Xiaozhen a reassuring look and followed Tang San away. Xiaozhen and Yun followed behind, neither of them spoke, and the atmosphere was awkward. Woo-hoo, Bibi Dong pushed Liu Chang'an and pointed at her mouth, indicating that she had something to say. Liu Chang'an ignored her. This woman would easily become arrogant if she didn't teach her a lesson. Kai Ling came over and asked, Boss, if someone wants to revive someone who has already been resurrected, what will happen? Liu Chang'an said, basically, there will be no reaction. They will be informed that the person is still alive. Kai Ling nodded slightly, paused for a few seconds, and suddenly said, Boss, there are many beautiful scenery in Great Continent. If you like, I can be your guide. After Kai Ling finished speaking, she turned and left, looking cold, as if it was not her who had just made the invitation. Bibi Dong's eyes widened. Good guy, you dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, right? She hasn't eaten it yet, and here comes another little bitch. Bibi Dong pulled Liu Chang'an's sleeve, pointed at her mouth, and hummed even louder. A hand suddenly grabbed Bibi Dong's sleeve, and Qian Renxue said helplessly, Stop making trouble, the boss will give you a more serious punishment later. Then, Qian Renxue pulled Bibi Dong away without saying anything. Seeing this, Liu Chang'an suddenly said, By the way, the punishment I gave you before can be revoked. Qian Renxue stopped, her neck was pink. Her original punishment was to watch a pornographic film, and she hadn't even finished half of it. Knowing that there was hope of being exempted from punishment, she gritted her teeth and didn't look back. No, I'm willing to be punished. Question mark. Liu Chang'an was stunned for a moment. Good guy, is this girl addicted? Boss, what is her punishment? Why are you so reluctant to give it up? Liana came over and asked with a smile. Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly. This was Qian Renxue's privacy, and he couldn't tell Liana. Especially after that night, Liana seemed to have awakened some strange habits. The way she looked at Qian Renxue was not right, and she often knocked on Qian Renxue's door in the middle of the night. Liu Chang'an couldn't help but think that if Liana knew about Qian Renxue's punishment, it would probably be, Sisters you don't want people to know that you're addicted to watching porn, right? Then came a series of scenes that were not suitable for children. Liu Chang'an shook his head, dispelling those absurd thoughts, and looked at the ring. On it, Tang San and Xiao Yan had already started fighting. Tang San's skills can be called divine skills in Douluo Continent, but in Great Continent, they are only at the level of yellow level skills. After all, one is a martial arts world, and Dupo is fantasy after all. Tang San's body movements are very good, and his hidden weapons are also excellent, but Xiao Yan can always dodge them. Xiao Yan kept trying to close the distance with Tang San. Tang San seemed to sense the danger and always kept his distance. Chapter 285 The Temptation of Wine. Tang San's figure was ghostly, constantly dodging backwards, away from Xiao Yan's approach, and at the same time, he used various unexpected hidden weapons. Ding ding dang dang, the hidden weapons fell on Xiao Yan's Chuan's thong ruler like raindrops. Although the Chuan's thong ruler was heavy, Xiao Yan was quite skilled in using it and easily blocked the attack of the hidden weapons. What are you afraid of? Come on. Let's get close and fight. Xiao Yan said with a grin, while continuing to chase Tang San. You can catch me first. Tang San sneered. His melee ability was not inferior to the hidden weapons, but inexplicably, he had a fear of Xiao Yan, and he might be in danger if he fought in close combat. Therefore, he kept using hidden weapons to restrain Xiao Yan. Then you just wait. Xiao Yan sneered. On the ring, you chased me, and the people below the stage watched the excitement and lost interest. After all, the current combat power of the two is really not up to the standard. For the strong men of the Douluo Continent, it was just a child's play. Nalan Yanren frowned slightly and said to Yun Yun, Teacher, Tang San is really good at using hidden weapons. Did he learn with the art? And the aura he exudes is a little evil. Yun Yun shook her head and said, Yes, he is from Douluo Continent, so he must have the ability of another world. Then who do you think will win? Nalan Yanren asked curiously. It depends on whether Xiao Yan can catch up with Tang San. If he can't catch up, Tang San will sooner or later drag Xiao Yan to death. Or if he is hit by a hidden weapon, his hidden weapons are all quenched with poison, and it would be dangerous if he gets touched. If he catches up, Xiao Yan has a greater chance of winning. Yun Yun analyzed. However, if Xiao Yan is only at this level, he wants to surpass me, that's just wishful thinking. Nalan Yanren chuckled, looking down on Xiao Yan's current strength. Xiao Zuna glanced at Nalan Yanren and said calmly, If Brother Xiao Yan can't satisfy you, why don't we have a fight? How about going to the ring later? Nalan Yanren raised her chin, maybe, Yanren. Don't make trouble. Clan leader Xiao, don't take the jokes of two children seriously. Yun Yun scolded lightly and said to Xiaozhen. Xiaozhen smiled slightly and nodded, that's the truth. Zuna, this is Xiao Yan's challenge, don't fight with him. Xiao Zuna nodded, okay, Uncle Xiao. At this time, the scene finally changed. Xiao Yan was hit on the shoulder by a hidden weapon of Tang San, and the hidden weapons were all poisonous and very fierce. Xiao Yan's face turned black immediately, his body softened, and he fell forward. Tang San was surprised and paused. He was sweating profusely and was exhausted. You were going to lose. Tang San said proudly. Xiao Yan knelt on the ground, the Chuan's thong ruler fell beside him, and the exposed skin turned blue and purple. Tang San continued to laugh. My poison is not something you can resist head-on. Admit defeat now and suffer less pain. Otherwise, you may die of pain. Tang San did not get carried away and went forward to check, but shot more than a dozen hidden weapons from a distance. Shooting around Xiao Yan, if Xiao Yan just dodged, he would definitely be hit by the hidden weapons, and if he did not move, although he would not be stacked by the hidden weapons, it also showed one thing, he has no strength. Officially defeating the former genius boy in the other world, Tang San regained some confidence. You are very strong, but unfortunately, your opponent is me. Blue-silver grass appeared under Tang San's feet, and he was only now planning to use his spirit skills. At this moment, Xiao Yan seized the opportunity to attack and rushed towards Tang San in an instant. His speed was even faster than before he was poisoned. Almost in the blink of an eye, he rushed to Tang San like a cheetah, and his right shoulder with unparalleled momentum slammed into Tang San's waist. 8 extreme collapse. The sound almost roared from the bottom of his heart, and Xiao Yan's whole body was surrounded by the green doki. Bang! Tang San instantly took off, his whole body almost folded in half, and a large mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. His 5 internal organs were all smashed by this blow. Especially the kidneys, which were hit by the 8 extreme collapse and turned into powder in an instant. He rolled out of the ring like a broken sack. Just at the moment of landing, a golden light shone from the sky above the ring and fell on him. Tang San stopped curling up, sat up, and looked at Xiao Yan on the stage with lingering fear. This guy's willpower is really terrifying. How could he not know what kind of pain the poison he prepared could bring to people? Even if he was an Iron Man, he would be paralyzed and dare not breathe after being poisoned. But Xiao Yan endured it. Then he found the right opportunity to turn defeat into victory. Xiao Yan jumped off the ring and looked at Tang San coldly. Your hidden weapon is really vicious. So is your poison. You and her are from the same sect, it's really a match made in heaven. Xiao Yan, what do you mean? Nalan Yanren was fed up and asked coldly. Yun Yun held her down and shook her head helplessly. Okay, stop talking. Tang San, is your injury serious? Yun Yun asked. Tang San's face turned pale, and he shook his head and said, it's okay. Set Master, after the end of the ring, all injuries will recover, but pain is inevitable. That's good. Yun Yun said. Tang San wanted to say that the feeling of having his kidneys broken was not good at all. At this moment, a commotion broke out in the tavern. Another person has succeeded in challenging the mortal wine. Too lame. His wish is just to be promoted to Do Wang. Look at the wine he chose, Pudukaham wine. It costs 50,000 gold coins. Who would spend so much money for a bottle of wine? Someone shouted loudly, dissatisfied with the high price of the wine, and then was thrown out by Ming. Those who knew the effect of the wine immediately started to buy it. The wine in the tavern has extraordinary effects. Even Dosheng and gods cannot refuse the benefits of the wine. The strongmen of the Soul clan and other big clans immediately bought it. Yun Yun also wondered, it's really strange, why is the price of a bottle of wine so expensive? Tang San immediately exclaimed, Master, don't underestimate these wines. Their value cannot be measured by gold coins. Even the top strongmen need these wines. Yun Yun bought a bottle with doubt. The wine bottle emitting a faint golden light is comfortable to the eyes. Yun Yun opened the lid and a scent of wine emanated. Xiao Yan and the others who had not left could not help but stop and subconsciously wanted to smell it a few more times. This wine smells, Master, please taste it. This wine has a very good effect. It can dissolve impurities in cultivation, especially in the inner demons. Tang San smiled. Malin Yanren said suspiciously, what you said is too mysterious. Yun Yun took a sip. As soon as the wine entered her mouth, her eyes lit up and she said in surprise, this wine, chapter 286. On fine wine, even Dosheng can taste the magic of this wine. The inner demons I once left behind are now all gone. Just because of a bowl of wine. A strong man said in surprise. At this time, Emperor Huntian just came from outside. Hearing this, he became interested and bought a bottle of Pudukaham wine. As soon as he took a sip, his eyes lit up and praised. Good wine. He needed this Pudukaham wine too much. Because he had been devouring souls all the time, although his strength had skyrocketed, it also left some hidden dangers. The existence of Pudukaham wine erased those effects. In this way, he was no different from a normal practitioner who became stronger. Such a good wine, only asking for 50,000 gold coins. Good. I want to buy 1,000 bottles. Emperor Huntian said subconsciously. Yuan, who followed in closely, snorted coldly and said, Emperor Huntian, have you forgotten the rules of the tavern? I can't help myself. Emperor Huntian restrained his smile and said indifferently. Yuan passed by him and glanced at the scene in the tavern. In fact, he was looking at his daughter. After he entered the tavern, he also ordered a bottle of Pudukaham wine. His daughter, Xiao Zuna, looked at the father and son of the Xiao family who looked embarrassed, and smiled and said, Uncle Xiao, I have extra money. Let me treat you. Thank you for your care over the years. Then, Xiao Zuna bought 3 bottles of Pudukaham wine. This is really embarrassing. Xiao Zun smiled awkwardly and had to accept it. Xiao Yan smiled and said, Zuna, I will repay you later. Brother Xiao Yan is too polite. Xiao Zuna pretended to be angry. Xiao Yan shook his head and tasted the Pudukaham wine. His eyes became extremely firm. He must rise up, not only to avoid being looked down upon, but also to let Zuna recognize him. He, Xiao Yan, has never been a soft egg who relies on women. At this time, Xiao Yan's face changed slightly, because an undisguised evil look was cast at him. Xiao Yan slowly turned his head and saw a very contrasting figure. He was dressed in grey and white clothes, and looked about 30 years old, with a slender figure and a handsome face. A pair of pupils were extremely bright, as if they could see through people's hearts. The first impression he gave was elegance. If he held a book in his hand, he would probably be no different from a scholar. Emperor Huntian even smiled at Xiao Yan. But the more he did so, the more vigilant Xiao Yan became. For some reason, it seemed that this man was clearly his biggest opponent. Emperor Huntian just glanced at him and ignored Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan was now like a small fly in his eyes. He just thought this little thing sounded unique, so he took a closer look. What he valued most now is the fine wine in the tavern. He said, Pudukaham wine is so intoxicating, I wonder how delicious other fine wines are. There are many fine wines in the tavern. By chance, I have tasted many of them. Why don't I introduce them to this gentleman? Nine Fengzi from Douluo Continent suddenly said with a smile. Although the strength of the two people is very different, their temperaments are very similar. Emperor Huntian nodded slightly and said, Thank you very much, sir. What's your name? Douluo Continent, 7 treasures glazed tile sect, 9 Fengzi. 9 Fengzi clasped his fists and said. Emperor Huntian did not neglect him and clasped his fists and said, Emperor Huntian. To talk about the fine wines in this tavern, we have to start with the ice and fire yin yang wine, which is priced at 30,000 gold soul coins, that is, the gold coins here. It is brewed with the water of the ancient sacred spring. Drinking it can strengthen the body and meridians, and make the bones strong and firm. And the stronger the person, the stronger the benefit. 9 Fengzi explained with a chuckle. Emperor Huntian's eyes lit up. Good wine, I must taste it if I have the chance. The other strong men in Douluo Continent also pricked up their ears and listened here. 9 Fengzi added. The second kind of wine, Pudokaham wine, needs no further explanation, you will know it after experiencing it yourself. As for the third kind of wine, it can prolong your life by 10 years and cure all diseases. For someone like you, 10 years may pass in the blink of an eye. But, no matter what kind of injury you have, even if your soul is on the verge of breaking, drinking this inch of grass Chunhui wine can also prolong your life. 9 Fengzi's last sentence added to the status of inch of grass Chunhui wine. Otherwise, for a Douluo Continent expert who can easily live for thousands of years, 10 years is simply a joke. The fourth kind of wine is the sword decision floating cloud wine. Those who are obsessed with swordsmanship must not miss it. Although other cultivators cannot improve their swordsmanship realm by drinking it, it can temper their character. The fifth kind, the ancient bamboo leaf green wine, can dissolve all toxins in the world. The sixth kind, the 10,000-year blue silver wine, can increase cultivation. The seventh kind, the wheel of the underworld wine, can see the underworld, which is also a great fortune. The eighth kind, the 5 spirits dragon blood wine, can improve blood. The ninth kind, the wine of endless life. 9 Fengzi talked a lot, and his understanding of fine wine made everyone intoxicated. Many people looked expectant, and they all found what they wanted from these fine wines. At this time, Bibi Dong and Yafei happened to walk in from outside. Seeing the crowds of people in the tavern, but only one person's voice, they both looked puzzled. Neither of them spoke, but just found a place to sit down and watch the changes. Soon, Bibi Dong found the beauty in the crowd, Queen Medusa. Bibi Dong stood up instantly, his face was full of excitement. Don't be impulsive, Yafei hurriedly comforted him. Bibi Dong glanced at Yafei coldly and said, Little girl, sit here and don't move. I can do it by myself, no need to help me. Without waiting for Yafei to reply, Bibi Dong left quickly. Yafei looked helpless and followed behind, but did not say anything to stop him. Bibi Dong walked quickly towards Queen Medusa, but when he approached, his speech slowed down instead, and his face was full of complexity. If you don't know, seeing him like this, you might think that he and Queen Medusa have some love-hate relationship. What are you doing here? Get out. Kailin saw Bibi Dong approaching and spoke harshly to him. Bibi Dong did not change his expression, his eyes were firm, and he said, Queen Medusa, I came here for a hope, the hope of reviving the butterfly. From then on, you have nothing to do with the butterfly. Now, get out of the tavern. Kailin shouted coldly. Bibi Dong wiped his face and continued, no matter what, I came to this tavern to revive Dai. Dai has been resurrected. It has nothing to do with you. What you should do now is to leave the tavern and never appear next to Dai. Kailin said coldly. Dai is resurrected. Bibi Dong showed ecstasy and said in a lost voice, where is she? I want to see her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 287 Refreshed. Resurrection has nothing to do with you. From now on, Dai and you are strangers. Moreover, although I resurrected her, I also erased her memories of you. Your memories will only make Dai suffer. Kailin said mercilessly. Bibi Dong was stunned and looked at Dai in disbelief. Dai, has she forgotten me? Kailin nodded and sneered, that's right. Think about it clearly, Dai doesn't love you anymore. Her memory is only the day before she lost her memory. Even if you meet, she won't recognize you. Moreover, your current state, Kailin sneered again and again. Everyone looked at Bibi Dong. Many people had seen Dai and knew that Dai was almost exactly the same beauty as Queen Medusa. How could such a woman be related to Bibi Dong, an old man? They would be jealous to death. That's right, Bibi Dong's appearance is too old now. Because he was sealed by Queen Medusa, not only his strength was greatly reduced, but even his appearance became that of a white-haired old man. He didn't look refreshed at all. Yafei came from behind and saw the whole process. Staring at Bibi Dong's back, Yafei instantly sorted out the cause and effect from Queen Medusa's words. She smiled and said, Queen Medusa, since your sister has been resurrected, can you unseal Lord Bibi Dong? Bibi Dong looked back at Yafei and shook his head slightly. Queen Medusa had almost no emotions, and was stubborn and self-willed. It was impossible for her to unseal him. Yes. Queen Medusa said lightly. Question mark. Bibi Dong looked at Queen Medusa in surprise. Kailin said, go out. I can't unseal you in the tavern. Bibi Dong pondered for a moment, nodded, and left with Queen Medusa. When Bibi Dong entered the door again, he was no longer the old man who was frail. He had an upright figure. Although his hair was grey, his carved facial features still gave people a handsome impression. This is a handsome uncle with a refreshed face. Yafei saw that Bibi Dong had recovered his appearance and strength must have recovered to Douluo. She was surprised and said, Master Bibi Dong, congratulations on your recovery. Bibi Dong shook his head slightly. He was not very happy because Dai was resurrected, but she had no memory of him. Queen Medusa, I still want to see Dai. I won't say anything, and I won't do anything. Just take a look at her and know that she is fine now. Please help me. Bibi Dong looked at Queen Medusa sincerely. Kailin was about to refuse. Liu Chang'an suddenly said, don't be so unkind. Promise him. Kailin glanced at Liu Chang'an and could only nod. Then he looked at Bibi Dong, and his face showed an impatient expression again, saying, remember, don't tell Dai anything. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Yes, Bibi Dong was excited, and then bowed to Liu Chang'an to thank him. Kailin was about to leave the tavern. Liu Chang'an said again, I'll help you. As he said that, Liu Chang'an raised his hand and drew a circle in front of him, and a space tunnel appeared. Kailin nodded slightly to Liu Chang'an and entered it. After a moment, she appeared with Dai, who was almost the same as herself. As soon as the two beauties appeared in the tavern, they attracted the attention of most people. Even the top masters such as Emperor Huntian saw the twin lotuses, and their eyes lit up. If it weren't for the relationship with the tavern, they would be willing to pick these two flowers. But now at the influence of Liu Chang'an, they can only watch. Bibi Dong's eyes turned red. This was the woman who made him change from a cold and handsome man. His beloved even fought with Queen Medusa for this, and was finally sealed. And Dai was also very good to him, and even died to block fatal injuries for him. But now, the two met but didn't know each other. Dai had completely forgotten him. Even if he cried, Dai just glanced at him, with a hint of doubt in her eyes, and then turned away. Sister, what did you bring me here for? Dai asked in confusion. Kailin smiled and said, because of the tavern, we can travel between Great Continent and Douluo Continent, so I thought of bringing you here to see it. Of course, the boss is also very supportive of this. Kailin looked at Liu Chang'an, right, boss. Dai looked at Liu Chang'an curiously and said, boss. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and smiled, yes. The two worlds are connected, and I also hope that you can communicate more. Of course, anyone who comes to the other world from the tavern must be restrained and must not harm the creatures of the other world without reason. Everyone looked at each other, and their interest was quite high. At this moment, Bibi Dong suddenly stepped forward and said, boss, I want to challenge the worldly wine. Kailin frowned and looked at Bibi Dong coldly. What wish do you want to make? Kailin asked coldly. Bibi Dong smiled and said, I have admired the queen for a long time. Now that I have such an opportunity, I want to offer my blessing to the two of you. May you never be harmed by poison, may you have sufficient luck and be immune to all evil, no need. Kailin shouted coldly. Bibi Dong did not say anything, but directly took out 3 gold soul coins and exchanged them for 3 bowls of earthly wine. Under the cold gaze of Queen Medusa, he drank it all. 10 seconds passed quickly, and everyone was observing him. But he never wavered. 10 seconds later, he wiped his mouth and laughed, good wine. It's really refreshing. Queen Medusa, I hope you sisters will like my gift. And I want to go to another world to see the scenery. Bibi Dong laughed and went to the gate leading to Douluo Continent. Kailin looked at his bag coldly. At this time, her and Dai's bodies emitted a faint golden light. A warm feeling surrounded them. Bibi Dong's wish is a blessing. From now on, Kailin and Dai will never suffer from natural disasters or be harmed by poison again. Sister, this guy is really a lovesick person. You should be more nice to him. Dai said with a smile. Dai, remember, don't get close to men, it will make you unhappy. Kailin said to Dai with a serious face. Dai giggled and said playfully, the boss too? Kailin glared at her and said nothing. At this time, Emperor Huntian suddenly smiled and said, Brother, since the challenge is successful, why don't you choose a good wine? Bibi Dong raised his hand and said casually, it's not too late to choose when I want to get drunk. Yafei watched Bibi Dong leave, and her eyes twitched. This is really embarrassing. Bibi Dong has recovered his strength, but he went directly to another world. Can their Michelle family still borrow strength? Chapter 288. This child has the talent to become an emperor we have watched for so long. If we continue to wait and see, we will be looked down upon, right? Now, all of you should start thinking about your life's wishes, and then go challenge the mortal Da. Emperor Huntian suddenly said with a smile. Seeing this, Yuan also said, the members of the Ge clan should also start thinking about their own wishes. We will also start the challenge later. Emperor Huntian looked at Yuan with a smile, and said with a smile, Brother Gu, why don't we make a bet to see which side has more successful challenges, how about it? Oh? How to bet? Yuan asked in confusion. Emperor Huntian said with a smile, how about betting on the Chuaxi ancient Empire Jade? Yuan looked at Emperor Huntian deeply, and said with a smile, how can you put such a precious thing on such a simple bet? Let's change it. I heard that Brother Gu has a daughter who has never shown up. And there is also an outstanding younger generation in my clan. If Brother Gu loses, let the two young people get to know each other. Maybe our two clans can become relatives. Emperor Huntian said with a smile. Yuan looked at him deeply and said, I dare not become in-laws with Brother Hun. Forget it, what kind of bet is it? It's meaningless. Let's challenge the worldly wine first. At this time, an elder of the ancient clan stood up and began to challenge the worldly wine. The strong men of the Soul clan and other clans were all watching. After the elder of the ancient clan finished drinking the worldly wine, he held onto the table, his face flushed, and said, I want to revive my poor little grandson, I want to revive. At the 8th second, the body of the elder of the ancient clan shook violently and fell drunk. Seeing this, everyone showed surprise. They had persisted for 8 seconds, but still fell down. The strength of the elder of the ancient clan was more than 100 times greater than Bibi Dong. I wonder what his punishment is? The strong men of all clans were concerned about this. They didn't challenge before because they were old and strong, so they didn't want to take risks. Yuan clasped his fist towards Liu Chang'an and said, please help me, boss. Liu Chang'an said, his wish is not too big for him, and he has persisted in the challenge for 8 seconds, so the punishment is slightly lighter, reducing his life by 30 years. Hearing this, the strong men of various races nodded slightly. This punishment was indeed not too serious for them. Yuan clasped his fist towards Liu Chang'an to show his gratitude, and then looked at Emperor Huntian. Emperor Huntian nodded directly to the person next to him. This person was surrounded by black flames, and his body was densely covered with strange black runes. His eyes were like black holes, filled with a terrifying devouring power, and his whole body exuded an extremely ancient and strange aura. He said, my wish is very simple, that is, to become an emperor. But I know very well that if I really hold this idea, I will definitely fail, so my wish is, to become stronger. To reach the strength in my heart. After saying this, Void swallowed flame drank 3 bowls of earthly wine. After the earthly wine entered his stomach, he closed his eyes and felt beautiful, and the aura emanating from his body began to fluctuate. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, his aura rose rapidly, and everyone could sense that he was getting stronger. Plop. Void swallowing flame's trend of getting stronger came to an abrupt halt, and suddenly, he fell down. He was drunk and passed out. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Everyone was shocked. It was already the 9th second, why did he still fail? Soul Empire asked in confusion. Boss, may I ask how he could fail? People are greedy and want to swallow an elephant. The same is true for the strange fire. They can obviously achieve their wishes successfully, but they are greedy at the last moment and want to break through to the Dou Empire in one fell swoop. Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly. When Liu Chang'an said this, the strong men of all races sighed secretly. It was a pity for Void-Swallowing Flame, but if it were them, they would have already succeeded more than half, and they would definitely not be able to resist the temptation. So, what is his punishment? Soul Emperor asked curiously. His punishment is to deprive the Soul Devouring clan of their abilities. Liu Chang'an said lightly. When this was said, a look of horror flashed in Soul Emperor's eyes. Few people know the true identity of Void-Swallowing Flame, let alone his ability. Now Liu Chang'an directly revealed Void-Swallowing Flame's ability, and easily deprived him of it, which was simply shocking. The masters of the Ancient Clan and the Soul Clan all failed, and the enthusiasm of the crowd to challenge the worldly wine has decreased a lot. Xiao Zhen even said to Xiao, the difficulty of the worldly wine challenge is too high, and it is difficult for us to succeed. Since you have recovered your talent, then let's, Xiao Yan suddenly said. Father, look around here for a while. Besides, I don't want to make another wish. Xiao Yan smiled embarrassedly. In fact, he was afraid that he and his father would be sniped by the Soul Clan strongmen after leaving. At this time, Emperor Huntian stood up and said, let me do it. My wish is very simple. I hope to see the person who poses the greatest threat to my Soul Clan, and it would be best if I can see the scene. After that, Emperor Huntian began to drink. At this moment, Xiao Yan's heart was shaking wildly, and a terrifying omen exploded in his heart. Xiao Yan stared at Emperor Huntian, and 10 seconds passed quickly. Emperor Huntian's face showed shock. A scene appeared in the air above the tavern. The strange fire square was suspended in the sky. Xiao Yan moved and appeared above the square. The gorgeous fire mark at the center of his brow suddenly jumped violently at this moment. An indescribable wave of thoughts quickly spread out from the fire mark and spread across the entire Douluo Continent at an extremely terrifying speed. In the name of Emperor Xiao Yan, I command all the fires in the world to obey my orders. Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly opened, and gorgeous flames burst out from his body. His shout full of coercion resounded in every corner of the Douluo Continent. No. 23 on the strange fire list, Xuan Wangyan, return. Brilliant flames swirled around Xiao Yan, as if he was an emperor in flames. As the shout fell, a deep mountain hundreds of thousands of miles away from Thongzhou suddenly exploded, and a deep yellow flame spurted out, finally streaking across the sky like a meteor, shuttling through space, and in a short moment, it appeared above Thongzhou, and finally directly fell into a stone pillar on the strange fire square. Boom. As the deep yellow flame swept into the stone pillar, the Xuan Wangyan rising from it suddenly increased, turning into a pillar of fire, rising into the sky. No. 22 on the strange fire list, 10,000 beast spirit fire, return. No. 21 on the strange fire list, ... no. 19 on the strange fire list, kindling earth core fire, return. A light blue flame gushed out of Xiao Yan's body and also rushed into a stone pillar. ... Countless people in the screen stared at this spectacular scene in amazement. Every time Xiao Yan shouted, a strange fire would break through the air from afar, and finally obeyed his command and entered the stone pillar. It was as if Xiao Yan had turned into an emperor in the flames, and no one dared to disobey his finger. Such a magnificent scene made people excited and excited. The supreme feeling of everything in the world obeying my command made people extremely respectful and envious. Outside the venue, the people in the tavern were also stunned, staring at this scene. Chapter 289 Exposed. Boom. My Soul Clan has been planning for thousands of years, but we have lost you. Xiao Yan, I'm unwilling to accept this. I'm unwilling to accept this. Under the gaze of countless eyes, the formation turned into many fire lines, entwined on the body of Emperor Huntian, and his body was entangled in the fire lines and melted rapidly, and finally turned directly into a ball of soul light. At this moment, the shrill roar of Emperor Huntian also rumbled between heaven and earth. As soon as the ball of light appeared, the fire lines turned into a huge cocoon, and the fire cocoon took shape, and then slowly fell on the strange fire square, and finally slowly sank into the depths of the square, and the mysterious fire patterns densely wrapped the entire square, like a seal. On the earth, countless people looked at the fire cocoon suppressed in the strange fire square, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. In the tavern, many people were also trembling with horror at the scene in the picture. The dignified Emperor Huntian was actually annihilated and refined by Xiao Yan. Moreover, the Soul Emperor in the picture was completely different from the present one. He was evil, domineering, cold and wild, giving people a sense of destroying the world. The fighting skills he used were also recognized by most of the Soul Clan. For a time, everyone in the Soul clan was in danger, because using that fighting skill required sacrifice, and the people sacrificed by the Soul Emperor in the scene were their own people. In the end, he was defeated by Xiao Yan, who became the Flame Emperor. The Soul Emperor's 1,000-year plan was successful, but in the end he was defeated by the latecomer. This scene was too shocking. Everyone present could not calm down for a long time. The Soul Emperor's face was pale. No one could be too calm when seeing the scene of his future self falling. What's more, it was a time when the long-cherished wish that he had always believed in was realized, but it was all in vain. Flame Emperor? Xiao Yan? The Soul Emperor's deep eyes slowly turned to the direction of Xiao Yan. Yuan narrowed his eyes. He sent his daughter to the Xiao family and heard about the genius boy who once shone brightly in the Xiao family. Although he had a good relationship with his daughter, because he lost his talent in the middle, it seemed that there was nothing worth mentioning. As a result, he actually became the Emperor of Flame in the future, and even defeated the Emperor of Soul Heaven. And what about Yuan? He did not show up at the scene. Either he had been killed by the Emperor of Soul Heaven, or he could not participate, because the Emperor of Soul Heaven had already become the Emperor of Dou. Thinking about it this way, the Emperor of Soul Heaven is really not simple. He actually took away the Chuaxi ancient Emperor Jade from their family. However, the most important thing is that this kid Xiao Yan has unlimited achievements in the future. Yuan also looked at Xiao Yan. It can be said that everyone present turned their eyes to Xiao Yan. After all, the pinnacle of the legend of Douluo Continent is the Emperor of Dou. Just like the 100-level godhood in Douluo Continent. Xiao Yan, a little person in a remote place, will become an existence that everyone will look up to in the future. This impact is really incredible. Yun shook her head helplessly. Thinking about it this way, her good disciple, the Fuang she rejected, is actually a future Emperor of Dou. It can only be said that he will refuse. Although Nalan Yanlan's reason for breaking off the engagement with Xiao Yan was not only because of his talent, she couldn't calm down now that she saw that Xiao Yan had such a bright future. An inexplicable regret rose from the bottom of her heart. Tang San was afraid for a while. The kid who was tricked by him with a hidden weapon seemed to have a great future. Should he find a way to save the relationship? Xiao Yan was also afraid. This cause and effect was too big, he couldn't control it. In this situation, if he went out, would Emperor Huntian let him go? He would definitely die. He could only stay in the tavern to absolutely guarantee his life safety. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan almost vomited blood. He was still young. Did he have to hide in the tavern for the rest of his life? No, he had to find a way to solve it. Xiaozhen was stunned, his jaw was about to dislocate, and he said stupidly, "My son has the talent of the Emperor?" Liu Chang'an also watched this scene with a smile, without any guilt for changing the plot and roasting Xiao Yan on the fire. He even looked forward to the future development. "Boss, is this future bound to happen? No matter what I try, it can't be changed?" Soul Emperor asked doubtfully. Liu Chang'an smiled slightly and shook his head, "Of course not. This future is the future of your Soul clan without the intervention of the Tavern. Well, it's not over yet, your Soul clan will be completely exterminated." Soul Emperor was speechless. He thought that his Soul clan was the strongest clan now, and there would be a Dou Emperor in the future. In the end, the royal family was exterminated. Where can he go to make sense? Soul Emperor looked at Xiao Yan with a cold look. This kid who would ruin his great cause in the future must not be kept, and he must find a way to get rid of him. Yuan said at this time, "Soul Emperor, you're ambitious, you must have dug a lot of traps for us, right? Otherwise, how could you take away our Chuaxi ancient Emperor Jade? Xiao Yan is a good boy, our Ge clan will protect him. What about you, your clan?" Yuan looked at the patriarchs of other clans. The patriarchs of each clan nodded in agreement. "That's right. The Soul clan is so powerful. How can we survive in the future? We will definitely be destroyed by the Soul clan. Unite to resist the Soul clan. I think from now on, we should immediately seal off the Chuaxi ancient Emperor Jade. We would rather destroy it than let Emperor Huntian succeed." The alliance headed by the ancient clan was quickly formed. Emperor Huntian saw that there was only murderous intent in his eyes. He was so hateful that he made this wish. Now it's okay. It's okay to know what the original future situation is. At the time, at least the 1,000-year plan can be successful. It's just that he encountered Xiao Yan, the wave behind him, and broke it up. Now all the clans are on guard against the Soul clan. Together, they are really not weaker than the Soul Clan. Then how can he design the future? Everyone, maybe I will become a Dou Emperor through my own efforts in the future. Emperor Huntian tried to explain. Yuan sneered. We have all seen the tragic situation in Zhongzhou. Do you think we are 3-year-old children? How to make it right? There is no way to make it right. Not to mention these foreign races, even the strong men of the Soul Clan now look at him with strange eyes. If Xiaoyan's forces' suppression of the Soul Clan was the end, then Emperor Huntian's sacrifice of a large number of Soul Clan warriors in order to launch the Soul Clan's unique skill, the Emperor Slaying Array, the Emperor Slaying Ghost Blood Blade, was what destroyed the foundation of the Soul Clan in advance. This time, Emperor Huntian was considered to be disunited. After all, in the Soul Clan, many people actually respected Void Devouring Flame more. Now with this incident, they are more inclined to let Void Devouring Flame be the clan leader. Emperor Huntian was keenly aware of these changes. He looked at Xiaoyan again, and the murderous intent in his eyes almost condensed into substance. Boy, you are fine? Of course he is fine, ha ha ha. With me here, don't even think about touching him. Yuan stood in front of Xiaoyan and laughed. Chapter 290 Self-Help Method. Brother Gu, do you really want to make things difficult for me? Soul Emperor asked coldly. Yuan smiled coldly and said, who wants to make things difficult for whom? Check your conscience and think about what you are planning. I don't believe that you have no conspiracy ideas against our tribes. In short, Xiaoyan, my Gu tribe is protected. No, our alliance is protected. Yuan said coldly. The Soul Clan had black lines on their foreheads. In this way, they would be in a passive position. Offense and defense are reversed. Xiaoyan and Xiaozhen still don't understand the situation. Things happened too suddenly. All of a sudden, Xiaoyan will become a Dou Emperor in the future, defeat the Soul Emperor who is also a Dou Emperor, and even destroy the Soul Clan. This is confusing to them now. And the strong men of the Ge clan want to protect them, they also dare not believe it easily. At this time, Xiao Zuna suddenly grabbed Xiaoyan's hand and said with a smile, don't worry, brother Xiaoyan, my father said he would protect you, and he will definitely protect you. What? Zuna, your father? Xiaoyan was stunned for a moment. Xiao Zuna nodded and smiled. Yes, my father is him, the patriarch of the ancient clan, Yuan, who is powerful and no worse than the current Emperor Huntian. In the future, our ancient clan will protect you and the Xiao family. Xiao Zuna said this. Xiaoyan felt more at ease, but still a little weird. No matter how slow he was, he could guess that Xiao Zuna, as the daughter of the patriarch of the ancient clan, actually came to the Xiao family under a pseudonym, which must not be as simple as nostalgia. There must be ulterior motives as well. Therefore, Xiaoyan still couldn't put all his hopes on the ancient clan. At this time, Emperor Huntian tried to make a final effort. Brother Gu, the fate before was when there was no tavern. Now that we have a tavern, we can do whatever we want, so why bother pursuing the things left by Chuashigami? Before there was no other choice, I might have taken a risk, but now there is the challenge of the worldly wine. How can I risk offending you and do such a stupid thing? Emperor Huntian said sincerely. Unfortunately, no one believed him. Emperor Huntian sighed and could only look at Xiaoyan dimly, hesitating whether to take a great risk and strangle Xiaoyan in advance, or to build a good relationship and not make a deadly enemy. Although he killed the ancestor of the Xiao family 1,000 years ago, the matter was too secret, and no outsiders must have known it. Boss, I want to challenge the worldly wine. Xiaoyan suddenly raised his hand and said. Brother Xiaoyan, what wish do you want to make? Xiao Zuna asked curiously. Xiaoyan said. I want to gain the power when I become the Yan Emperor in the future. I must have the power to protect myself, so that I can prevent others from harming my family. But this should be very difficult, right? Xiao Zuna frowned. Reaching Daudi in one step, even if you don't know how to calculate the difficulty of Dust World wine, this leap will surely be terrifying. Even someone as strong as Void Swallowing Flame failed. Xiaoyan bought 3 bowls of Dust World wine without hesitation. At this time, he had no other choice after revealing his future. Soul Emperor, Yuan and others were all looking at him. Can this guy who will become Daudi in the future really reach the sky in one step? It seems impossible, but for someone who will definitely become Daudi in the future, maybe there is a chance of success. Xiaoyan drank 3 bowls in a row. He held the table and his body shook in the 3rd second. In the 5th second, his knees softened and he knelt on the ground. Aini, Xiaozhen hurriedly supported Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan was so drunk that his eyes were blurred. Everyone shook their heads slightly. Sure enough, the hope of reaching the sky in one step was too slim. It was already the 8th second. Xiao Yan shook his head and his eyes narrowed into a slit. In the 10th second, Xiao Yan closed his eyes completely. Xiao Zhen sighed secretly, just do your best. At worst, Dad will stay with you in the tavern. As long as we don't go out, the clan members won't be in too much danger. Dad, I really need to slow down. I'm not drunk, Xiao Yan, who had his eyes closed, suddenly spoke. Xiao Zhen's body stiffened, his face full of difficulty, looking at Xiao Yan in surprise. You succeeded. You succeeded in becoming a Dowdy. Xiao Zhen's voice trembled with surprise, and he bit his tongue several times and gasped. Xiao Yan opened his eyes and laughed. There are only 3 chances to enter the future Yanti state, and each time can only last for 3 days. Xiao Yan looked shy. In fact, he only had 1 chance, and after becoming the future Yanti, he could only last for 1 day. But this was enough. He already had the confidence to protect himself. With the protection of the ancient clan, Emperor Huntian would never take risks before he was sure of killing him. Seeing that Xiao Yan's challenge was successful, everyone in the tavern had different expressions. Yuan looked at Xiao Yan with a look that showed that he was looking at his son-in-law. Good. Good boy. Back then, your ancestor Xiao Chuan and I were very good brothers. It's great to see that his descendants are so promising. Yuan laughed. Dad. Don't talk nonsense. Xiao Zuna said helplessly. His father and Xiao Yan had been brothers for many generations, so wouldn't it be like an old cow eating young grass for her to think about Xiao Yan? Xiao Yan bowed and said, I will have to rely on the protection of Senior Gu. You don't have to be polite to me, just treat me as your uncle. Yuan waved his hand and said very heroically. Xiao Yan pushed the boat along and said, Okay, Uncle Gu. At this time, Emperor Huntian witnessed Xiao Yan's ability and suppressed his killing intent. He said, Xiao Yan, in the original future, you killed me and exterminated the Soul Clan. Fortunately, that was a future without a tavern. And now, the Soul Clan has not done anything harmful to you. I promise you now that the Soul Clan will not do such a thing in the future. If you violate it, you will be punished by heaven. Emperor Huntian swore bluntly. Since this kid is a ruthless person and has a bright future, he must carefully consider how to treat him. Xiao Yan's expression was plain, and he clasped his fist to Emperor Huntian and said, Senior, as you said, our fate has been changed. Thank you for your understanding and comfort me. Emperor Huntian smiled slightly and said, I should thank this worldly wine challenge for revealing a failed future to me, so that I can avoid it. Xiao Yan, I admire you very much. If you are willing, the Soul Clan can be your supporter behind you. Emperor Huntian said sincerely. Of course, it was unknown what he was thinking. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. Xiao Yan answered without a single mistake, but he still refused to have anything to do with the Soul Clan. Master Yun and his apprentice Yun had complicated expressions when they saw this scene. They had originally thought that this poor boy whose family had fallen on hard times had become a guest of honor of a top family in the blink of an eye. Chapter 291 Tang San. I regret it. Teacher, I also want to challenge the worldly wine. What Xiao Yan can do, I can do as well. Nalan Yanren said with red eyes. After all, she is a little girl and can't stand this stimulation. Yun said helplessly. Yanren, don't be impulsive. Teacher, I must try. Nalan Yanren gritted her teeth and said. Yanren. Yun was about to stop her. Nalan Yanren had already called the maid beside her and gave 3 gold coins to challenge the worldly wine. Tang San hurriedly said. Wait a minute, senior sister. Nalan Yanren glanced at Tang San. You want to stop me too? Tang San shook his head and said. The worldly wine challenge cannot be stopped. Even God can't. I want to give senior sister a few advice. After all, I have succeeded in that challenge several times. Tang San said lightly, but those several times were a bit pretentious. Only one of the top masters in the Bibi Continent has succeeded in that challenge, and it was just a wish to foresee the future, which was not difficult. As a result, Tang San succeeded several times. Tang San said, Actually, this is a joint discovery between me and the spirit training teacher. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogan behind Tang San stiffened. What is a spirit training teacher? Shouldn't he be a teacher who is like a master and a father? Now that the name is so distant, is the friendship between the master and the apprentice beginning to cool? Yu Xiaogan felt a sense of crisis. Okay, you say. Nalan Yanren nodded. Based on our inference, we have come up with a theory of destiny. That is to say, in different worlds, everyone has their own destiny. For example, Xiao, who is destined to become a Dou Dai, can be said to be the protagonist of destiny, and his future achievements will be the pinnacle of the Douluo Continent. Then his challenges will almost always succeed, as long as he really wants it. And those who can leave a strong and colorful mark, those who cannot be ignored, will also have a high probability of success in the future. Sister, if you want to succeed, you must first determine what your future destiny will be, Tang San said slowly. Qian frowned and said, don't you mean that only those who were originally powerful can succeed in the challenge, and ordinary people who are destined to be ordinary have no chance at all? No, you're wrong. According to what you said, how could you succeed several times? You don't look like. Qian stared at Tang San suspiciously. Tang San was embarrassed. He was embarrassed to say that his teacher and he both believed that he would definitely stand out in the future. Liu Chang'an said, what he said is wrong. Those who have great luck can indeed succeed in the challenge with a high probability. It is because they have such a will. And those who have no luck can also succeed if they have a strong will. Mortal wine is an opportunity to change fate, not a catalyst for fate. Little girl, the opportunity to ascend to heaven in one step is very tempting, but it is also very difficult. Liu Chang'an said to Qian, who was not defeated by Xiao, would never succeed in challenging the mortal wine now. Qian said, thank you, boss. I understand. Qian stopped looking at Tang San. With what the boss said, she didn't believe that this kid could have any experience worth learning. Qian, the boss said so. Yun wanted to persuade him again. But Qian said, I listened to the boss's words, so I won't ascend to heaven in one step. I just want to know how strong I will be when Xiao becomes the Dou Emperor. I'm unwilling to be left behind by him. With that, Qian drank 3 bowls of worldly wine. You fool. Yun was extremely helpless and held Qian's arm. Qian leaned on Yun's shoulder, half closed her eyes, and murmured, I won't lose to him. Tang San shook his head slightly. According to his opinion, his senior sister was destined to be a stepping stone for the destined protagonist Xiao. Her future achievements would not be high. Even the Yunlan sect he joined might be a pit. Fortunately, the tavern appeared. The Yunlan sect should not dare to provoke Xiao again. 10 seconds passed quickly, and Qian was no longer drunk. She suddenly opened her eyes, and her big watery eyes were full of disbelief. Qian, you succeeded, and your future. Yun did not ask any more questions. Seeing Qian's expression, she knew that Qian's future cultivation would naturally be far inferior to Xiao's. Teacher, woo-woo-woo, Qian hugged Yun and cried. Yun gently patted Qian's back and comforted her softly. Tang San shook his head helplessly. Sure enough, just as he imagined, this was the end of going against the protagonist. Seeing this scene, Xiao did not have much emotional change. Since he knew that he would be a Dou Emperor in the future, he was actually a little bit proud in his heart, thinking that the 3-year agreement and other things were nothing. After all, he had not experienced the trials in the future. Douluo in the ring shook his head and made up his mind to scold Xiao when he found an opportunity. You can't be complacent because of the achievements in your original destiny. Xiao Zuna looked at the crying Qian and curled her lips slightly. You gave up brother Xiao yourself, you deserve it. At this time, Qian had cried enough, raised her head from the chest of the beautiful master, and looked at Liu Chang'an, with a little face full of tears, and said, Boss, can I change my fate? Reach the Dou Emperor? Liu Chang'an nodded slightly. In the tavern, everything is possible. Besides, Dou Emperor is not a very high wish. In your Douluo Continent, Dou Emperor is a legend, but in the tavern, Dou Emperor is just a Dou Master. There is no difference. Liu Chang'an said lightly, not taking Dou Emperor seriously at all. When he said this, everyone present was silent for a while. Dou Emperor, after all, is the most powerful existence in their hearts, but now in Liu Chang'an's mouth, it seems worthless, which makes them quite unacceptable. At this time, Tang San asked, Boss, do all of us have the opportunity to become Dou Emperor in one leap? Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Almost every pair of eyes looked at Liu Chang'an with great enthusiasm. Of course. Liu Chang'an nodded. Tang San, didn't you say that you would not take advantage of the tavern again? Someone in the crowd shouted with laughter. Erming said unhappily, no noise in the tavern. Tang San gritted his teeth and said, I was too abrupt before. Now I know how wrong I was. Now I want to turn back. Tang San said this, directly denying his previous self. But if he doesn't change, he only has 2 challenges left, and he will never have a chance to turn over. Yu Xiaogan on his back did not say anything to stop him, but just pretended to sleep, and was very happy at this moment. He can finally recover his health. Chapter 292. Master and disciple break up. You need 3 million gold soul coins for this challenge. Of course, gold coins are also okay. Dou Yan happened to be beside him and said with a smile. Hearing this price, Tang San's face changed and his heart began to beat. First, he didn't have the money. Second, 3 million gold soul coins was still something he could hope for in his lifetime. But 30 million was almost impossible. The only forces that could afford it were the Spirit Hall, the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile Sect and the 2 Empires, but they would definitely not give this amount as a favor. So, he actually had no way out. Can't fail, must not fail. Tang San's eyes slowly turned to Yun Yun and said, Set Master, please believe me, if I have the opportunity to challenge, I will definitely succeed. By then, Yun Lan sect will have one more strong man. Looking at Tang San's determined eyes, Yun Yun really believed it a little, but 3 million gold coins, the output of gold coins in Douluo Continent is very high, especially in Fengzhou, even hundreds of millions is not surprising. If 3 million gold coins can really create a strong man, it will be a sure win for Yun Lan sect. Okay. But it will take some time. Yun Yun nodded. Dou Yan smiled and said, no need to be so troublesome. As long as you are willing to use your own funds to pay for him, the tavern can deduct it directly. Is it still possible? Doesn't that mean that the tavern can get anyone's property if it wants? Yun Yun was surprised. Dou Yan shook his head and said, of course the tavern can do anything. But the tavern has its own rules and will not do that kind of thing. Please rest assured. Sorry, I'm worried. Okay, I'm willing to pay for Tang San. Yun Yun nodded. Tang San swallowed his saliva, his expression excited, looking at the 3 bowls of worldly wine that suddenly appeared in front of him. He knew that this might be one of his few opportunities. Once he missed it, thinking of the result of failure, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Once he was nervous, he couldn't hold it back. Puff, a foul smell came from behind his butt. His sphincter relaxed and he couldn't stop. Nalan Yanlan's face darkened, and she quickly moved away from Tang San. This junior brother from another world is too unclean and unhygienic. Yun Yun's face was embarrassed. Although it was not good for the sect master to show a disgusted expression, she really couldn't stand the smell. She smiled and said, Xiao-san, you can use my money to buy other drinks in the tavern. Don't put too much pressure on yourself for this challenge. In fact, 3 million is not a big number for the sect. After that, Yun Yun moved away from Tang San. Tang San's heart was about to warm up, but when he saw the reaction of Yun Yun and his disciple, all the warmth in his heart disappeared. If he couldn't even accept his own taste, how could he accept himself as a person? Tang San's feelings for Yun Lan sect turned into a transaction of interests. He picked up the first bowl of earthly wine, but hesitated to drink it. The pressure was still too great. His body began to tremble. Otherwise, he wouldn't be unable to hold it. Otherwise, he would have regular bowel movements in the morning. Ugh. Just then, Yu Xiaogan on his shoulder couldn't help the smell and suddenly vomited. A mouthful of filth spurted out and landed on the bowl. The worldly wine automatically dispersed the filth. But Tang San reacted too quickly. He subconsciously let go of the worldly wine in his hand and avoided the filth. Pah! The worldly wine was scattered all over the floor. Tang San was dumbfounded. Looking at the wine on the floor, he was completely dumbfounded. This time, he didn't have to challenge, it was over directly. Xiao-san, you smell too bad. Teacher, I really can't afford to hurt you. Yu Xiaogan said awkwardly. As he spoke, his voice became smaller and he also saw the worldly wine on the floor. Ha ha ha. Absolutely. Tang San has such a teacher. I don't know what sins he did in his previous life. This time he must hate Yu Xiaogan to death. Yu Xiaogan, you are really the number one in pitting your apprentice. Everyone present burst into laughter. They all thought that Tang San was going to turn the tide, but Yu Xiaogan, who had brought Tang San to the ditch, actually performed steadily and ruined Tang San's precious opportunity. Xiao covered her mouth and looked at Tang San distressed. Why? Did her third brother offend someone? Why did every unfortunate thing happen to Tang San? Tang San didn't speak for a long time, staring blankly at the earthly wine on the ground. Yu Xiaogan didn't dare to speak, either, for fear that Tang San would kill him. That's right, he could already feel that Tang San's heart was indeed bursting with murderous intent. The relationship with his master could no longer give him a complete sense of security. Mr. Yu, I want to ask you, can drinking only 2 bowls of earthly wine be considered a challenge? Tang San's voice was hoarse and dry, as if there was sand in his mouth. Dou Yan looked at Tang San sympathetically and shook her head. I'm sorry, I can't. Tang San said again. Can I buy the next bowl separately? Sorry, that's not possible. Earthly wine is bought in 3 bowls. Dou Yan sighed. Tang San was silent for a long while. After a dead silence, he looked at Yun Yun, said, Master, can the sect still give me 30 million gold coins? Yun Yun pondered for a moment, shook her head and said, that depends on you showing enough value, Tang San. You can practice step by step for a while. Maybe you can become a strong man with your own ability. Tang San smiled coldly and sneered, with your own efforts. The person on my back, under the guise of such a pretext, paralyzed himself, and became a waste all his life. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Yu Xiaogan widened his eyes and looked at Tang San in disbelief. What did Xiao San say? Calling himself a waste? Shouldn't they be like father and son? Xiao San, you are not talking about me. Yu Xiaogan laughed dryly. Tang San wiped his eyes. There were no tears, but his eyes were red. He had a blank expression and said coldly, I am talking about you, useless person. Because of you, I lost the clear sky hammer spirit. Xiao San. Are you going to blame me now? Yu Xiaogan raised his voice. Because of you, I lost the blue-silver Empire bloodliner and can only be the lowest level blue-silver grass spirit. Tang San continued. That was also your own choice. Yu Xiaogan roared angrily. Because of you, I lost the Azure Ivy spirit. Because of you, I rejected the favor of the god of destruction. Because of you, I entered the city of slaughter, which is useless. Because of you, I was a man. Because of you, my spirit has fallen. Because of you, my Quantum Gong is almost useless. Now because of you, I have lost the opportunity to challenge. The more Tang San spoke, the more ferocious his face became, blue and black, his whole body was shaking, and a black aura seemed to be emanating. Yu Xiaogan's face turned red, and he dared not speak. He realized that he seemed to have betrayed Tang San. Because of you, I have no love. Tang San almost roared. Chapter 293. Everyone wants to reach the top in one step. Tang San burst into tears. Men don't cry easily, just because they are not sad. Now Tang San recalled his experience in the past 6 months. He felt so wronged and wanted to cry. Thanks to his good teacher, what kind of mess he has become now? Tang San put Yu Xiaogan on a chair, wiped his tears, and said coldly, Teacher, this is the last time I call you. I will let you recover your legs, and then our friendship between master and disciple will be completely severed. Xiao San, Yu Xiaogan panicked. At this moment, he wanted to save it. He couldn't lose Tang San. Not only because Tang San was a good disciple who proved himself, but also because he had a deep affection for Tang San. Tang San's kindness to him, never leaving him, appeared in his mind. Yu Xiaogan hurriedly said, Xiao San, it was the teacher's fault before. Can you forgive the teacher? The teacher promises you that you will never, no need to say more, I have seen through you. Tang San snorted coldly and asked Tang Xiao for 50,000 gold soul coins. Although this is also a huge sum of money for the current Asian sect, Tang Xiao was very happy to take it. Finally, Tang San can get rid of this vampire teacher. Tang San bought a bottle of inch grass Chunhui wine for Yu Xiaogan and stuffed it into Yu Xiaogan's mouth. If Yu Xiaogan doesn't drink it, he still has backbone. Then, Tang San said such cruel words before, but he will still take care of Yu Xiaogan. For Tang San, who attaches great importance to the relationship between master and apprentice, it is impossible to let Yu Xiaogan fend for himself. But Yu Xiaogan drank it happily, even as if he was afraid that Tang San would regret it, and soon drank it all. Ahem, Yu Xiaogan coughed a few times and subconsciously raised his hand to wipe his mouth. His arms stopped in midair, his expression froze, and then he showed ecstasy. Ha ha ha, I'm no longer a useless person. I can run and jump. Great. I'm finally recovered. No, you're a waste. Tang San suddenly sneered. Yu Xiaogan's smile froze on his face, looking at Tang San, who was speaking ill of him in disbelief. Xiao San, what did you say? Yu Xiaogan could hardly believe his ears. A disciple who always respected his teacher would actually speak ill of him. You told me that there are no useless martial spirits, only useless spirit masters. Now, your situation proves this point. You're a useless spirit master. Tang San sneered. You. Yu Xiaogan looked at Tang San in disbelief. He covered his chest, and intense pain exploded from the bottom of his heart. Tang San left without looking back. The relationship between master and disciple was broken. He didn't want to face Yu Xiaogan, the jinx, for a moment. Tang San came behind Master Yun and his disciple, and became a little apprentice. At this time, other people watched the excitement, especially the people of Douluo Continent, all clapped and cheered loudly. Good job, Tang San. You should have done this a long time ago. What kind of teacher is he? He is clearly an enemy. Without him, you would have a bright future now. You wouldn't have to go to the Great Continent Yunlang sect at all. Yes. It's never too late to mend the fold after the sheep have been lost. Fortunately, you decisively gave up the clown Yu Xiaogan. Everyone was talking at once. But almost all of them praised Tang San, and no one accused him of betraying his teacher and destroying his ancestors. After all, Yu Xiaogan, a guy who was not worthy of his position, had a bad reputation, and no one was willing to speak for him. Yu Xiaogan was stunned for a few seconds, listening to the contemptuous arguments coming from all directions. He looked embarrassed and couldn't stay any longer. He raised his sleeves to cover his face and ran out of the tavern in embarrassment. But he ran in the wrong direction and went to the Great Continent. But this person's reputation was too bad, and no one was willing to remind him, and even waited to see his joke. After the laughter, everyone fell into thinking. If you want to get a particularly strong power directly, it must be very difficult. But if, like Xiaoyan, he just skipped the process of hard work and directly reached the level he could achieve in the future, wouldn't it be easier? In this way, he would avoid taking a lifetime of detours. Many people were moved, especially those teenagers. The few people who spoke up at Shriek Academy had ideas. Oscar looked at Nine Rong Rong eagerly, thinking that if he was good enough, he should be liked by Nine Rong Rong, right? Daimu, but I was thinking, if he showed his heroism, could Zhu Zhuqing look at him more? Ma Hongjin was much more pragmatic. Unlike the two perverted brothers, he just wanted to make himself stronger directly, saving meditation and practice. He was such a lazy person. I want to challenge and get the strongest strength of my future in 3 days. Suddenly, a white-haired boy came out. Everyone looked over and saw that the boy was obviously only a 14-year-old boy, but he had reached the level of Soul King. It might not be a big deal in the Great Continent, but for the Douluo Continent in the era of the Spirit Hall, it was definitely a feat that could shock others. This person was the arrogant Xiao Hongchen. Jin Hongchen's face changed and he tried to grab him. You little bastard, what are you talking about? For 3 days, it's a waste of the opportunity to drink the worldly wine. Before Jin Hongchen stretched out his hand, another hand grabbed his arm. You want to fight in the tavern? It seems that you want to taste my fist. Erming said in a muffled voice. I dare not, I'm abrupt. Jin Hongchen was flexible and said with a smile. The next second, Xiao Hongchen finished drinking the worldly wine, wiped his mouth, and simply sat cross-legged on the ground waiting for the challenge. Everyone also focused their attention and stared at him. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. 10 seconds later, Xiao Hongchen suddenly burst out with a strong breath. If it was placed in the Great Continent, it would also be at the level of a low-level De Huang. However, seeing that Xiao Hongchen did not become a god, everyone was also helpless. Such a talented person did not become a god in the end. Isn't it too difficult? Only level 97? Are you kidding? Xiao Hongchen said with an ugly face. Even if you can't become a god, at least give me level 99. PFFT, love, you claim to be a rare genius, but in the end you were only level 97. The white-haired lily Meng Hongchen laughed mercilessly. Xiao Hongchen said with a dark face. Then you should try it once. As soon as the words came out, a deadly gaze fell on him. Xiao Hongchen's face changed drastically, and he quickly added. Moreover, the practice of our soul masters is not quite the same. If I can exceed level 95 in the future, I can completely become a legendary level 10 soul master. Meng Hongchen curled his lips and said disdainfully. You still haven't surpassed yourself. Do you know what it means to come to the tavern? You have even seen the true god, but you still want to rely on yourself. Anyway, my future is to become a god. Meng Hongchen raised his hand and pointed at the water god. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 294 Yu Xiaogan Spring. Xiao Hongchen patted his sister on the shoulder and said with a half smile, "Ming, don't be too confident. If it causes bad consequences, it will be bad. Our future is very bright, and we can't be punished." Meng Hongchen curled his lips and said, "The bright future refers to the title Douluo. Now that we have a tavern, we can't even become a 100-level god. What kind of bright future is that?" Xiao Hongchen is autistic. His sister's mouth always makes him break down. He wants to see what ability Meng Hongchen has to be so arrogant. Meng Hongchen went to the door of the counter, with a white single ponytail slanted behind her head. She looked at Liu Chang'an with a smile and asked, "Boss, a beautiful girl's treated preferentially here." Xiao Hongchen's mouth twitched. She was sharp-tongued with her brother, but she was acting cute with outsiders. Liu Chang'an shook his head and smiled, "Of course not." "Is that so? Can you treat the beautiful girl who admires you differently?" I like Mr. Boss the most. He is so handsome. You are the most handsome man I have ever seen in Douluo Continent. Boss, please." Meng Hongchen stared with big eyes, clasped his hands together, and looked at Liu Chang'an pitifully. Liu Chang'an smiled. It stands to reason that he would not have preferential treatment, but this little girl is white-haired. He chuckled and said, "How about this? If you fail, I will reduce your punishment by 30%. "Thank you, Mr. Boss." Meng Hongchen was about to rush up to hug Liu Chang'an. At this time, Zhu Zhuqing stood in front of her and raised her eyebrows and said, "Why are you so eager to join our sisters?" Meng Hongchen smiled awkwardly, I want to challenge the worldly wine. Then I can open it for you." Zhu Zhuqing smiled. Meng Hongchen agreed with some disappointment. Everyone saw this scene and had different ideas. Although it was previously speculated that the Zhu sisters had become the boss's forbidden delicacy, it was another experience to hear it with one's own ears. This time, the relationship between the Zhu sisters and the boss was confirmed, and they dared not show the slightest disrespect. Even the strong men in the Great Continent warned each other about this. No matter who you mess with, you must not mess with the Zhu sisters. The boss may be kind and generous, and generally does not care about everyone, but only women and villains in the world are difficult to raise. If the Zhu sisters hold a grudge against them and blow the pillow wind, they will be finished. Similarly, if they can get good word from the Zhu sisters, maybe, now, people's hearts are floating. Xiao Hongchen widened his eyes. He didn't expect that his stinky sister would actually hug a few dates. Although the difficulty was not reduced, the punishment came. How could Xiao Hongchen not envy her in his heart? And the benefits that his sister got were not just on the surface. What would others think if she could be treated specially by the boss? Dare to mess with your sister? Isn't this just hugging a thigh? It is estimated that in the future, even their grandfather Jin Hongchen will not be able to control Meng Hongchen. Xiao Hongchen suddenly envied his sister's female body. While everyone was thinking about their own things, Meng Hongchen also completed the challenge. At the 9th second, he fainted. Jin Hongchen hurriedly supported his granddaughter. Xiao Hongchen's mouth twitched. They looked at Liu Chang'an and asked in confusion, "Boss, may I ask why Xiao Meng failed?" Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "She could have succeeded in that challenge. When she was about to succeed, she was greedy and wanted to reach the future level directly, so you see what is happening now." Jin Hongchen shook his head helplessly. His granddaughter was greedy. She clearly said that she only wanted to experience the peak state in the future. As a result, she probably saw that she was also a titled Douluo and was favored by Liu Chang'an, so she wanted to go further. But reality gave her a hard blow. "Boss, what is Meng's punishment?" Jin Hongchen asked worriedly. "The soul power is reduced by a quarter level," Liu Chang'an replied. Jin Hongchen and Xiao Hongchen breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was not serious. The will of the soul guides of the Sun Moon Empire is really not good. Look at our Douluo Continent. A provocative voice suddenly sounded. Xiao Hongchen glared at him and looked over. The person who spoke was a fat man with short red hair. He looked ugly and exuded a sense of arrogance. This person was Ma Hongjin from Shriek Academy. He spoke rudely and was greeted with cheers from all around. "Fatty. I know you. You succeeded in that challenge once before. You must keep up the good work this time. Don't brag too much. It will be embarrassing if you can't take it back. Give our people in Douluo Continent a good face, and give the Sun Moon Empire a little Douluo shock. Come on, fatty. If you succeed in the challenge, I will treat you to a brothel. A top-notch pheasant. Facing the encouragement of everyone, Ma Hongjin smiled and clasped his fists everywhere. Of course, there were also people who were not optimistic about his style. When the sky is wild, there will be rain, and when people are wild, there will be disasters. This fat man is too arrogant, which is not a good thing. Ma Hongjin turned a deaf ear to these bad words. One of the mottos of their Shriek Academy is that those who dare not cause trouble are mediocre. By provoking the Sun and Moon Empire, not only can they gain fame, but they can also put pressure on themselves and increase their motivation. Ma Hongjin bought the worldly wine and drank 3 bowls in a row. He wiped his mouth, laughed, and thought secretly, a bunch of idiots, why do they have to fight directly to the peak state? If I directly reach the strength of 20 years later, wouldn't the difficulty be greatly reduced? Ma Hongjin drank 30,000 worldly wines, touched his forehead, and was confused in the 3rd second. This is not right, Ma Hongjin muttered and fell into a coma. Ma Hongjin may never know that in his original destiny, 20 years, he would have become a god. The difficulty of his challenge is no less than anyone else. Flanders blinked his little eyes, quickly helped Ma Hongjin up, sighed, and asked, Boss, what is the punishment for our fat man? Soul power is reduced by 5 levels. Liu Chang'an said. Flanders sighed. Now, the fat man who originally had good talent was just like everyone else. He could only hope for the challenge of the worldly wine later. Xiao Wu, do you want to challenge too? Flanders asked hesitantly. Well, I want to try. Oscar nodded. The fat man was too stupid. He must have thought about getting the power of the peak period directly. He was different. He was satisfied with the strength of 20 years later. On the other side, after Liu Chang'an left the tavern, he soon ran into a group of young people in uniform. The leader was a beautiful woman with a soft face and a hot body. A red-haired male student blocked the reckless Liu Chang'an and asked coldly, Don't you have eyes? Liu Chang'an staggered after being pushed and looked at them blankly. I'm Master Liu Chang'an, Chapter 295 Going Out for Fun. Master Liu Chang'an? What's his identity? The red-haired student was confused. Master, it sounds like an extraordinary title. But this down-and-out middle-aged man doesn't look like a big shot, and he exudes a strange smell. That's right, it's the smell of shit from Tang San's butt. Liu Chang'an's eyes widened, and he said with his neck stiff, Master is the master. What do you know, little kid? Seeing this, the beautiful teacher raised her eyebrows slightly. To be honest, although Liu Chang'an looked down and out, he was a scholar after all, and his temperament was full of bookishness. Rulin asked curiously, Are you from the tavern? No. You don't even know my reputation. Master Liu Chang'an? How come, you are not from Douluo Continent? Could it be, Great Continent? Liu Chang'an asked in surprise. He just realized that he had gone to the wrong place. This is another continent. Suddenly, Liu Chang'an thought that he had become a rat crossing the streets in Douluo Continent, and everyone wanted to beat him, so why not go to another place to make a comeback? Maybe he is a useless person in Douluo Continent, but he is a genius in cultivation in Great Continent. Rulin nodded, yes, we're at Great Continent here, sir. Everyone looked at Liu Chang'an in confusion. A strange color flashed in Liu Chang'an's eyes. He coughed lightly, suppressed his emotions, and smiled. I'm indeed from another world. My name is Liu Chang'an, and I am called a master in another world. Do you want a tavern? Rulin nodded and said, Yes, Mr. Yu, I heard that there is earthly wine in the tavern that can fulfill all people's wishes. We want to see if it is true. Liu Chang'an nodded and said, It is true. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Rulin and others widened their eyes and looked at Liu Chang'an in surprise. Liu Chang'an continued, Of course it is true. He was originally a tavern in our Douluo Continent, and now he has broken through to Great Continent. Many strong people in your Great Continent have also come to challenge, but few have succeeded in that challenge. Will it be very difficult? Rulin frowned slightly. Liu Chang'an said, Of course. Then, Rulin hesitated, she wanted to find out more information. Liu Chang'an took the initiative to say, I can help you. Moreover, I have done a lot of research on challenging the mortal wine. My disciples have succeeded several times and are very experienced. I can share this knowledge. I wonder what we can do for Mr. Yu. Ruler knew that there is no free lunch in the world. Liu Chang'an looked at them and asked with a smile, "Are you from the same college?" "Yes, we're Canaan College. I'm a teacher from the external college. My name is Rulin. This time I was leading the team outside, and I heard the news about the tavern and the mortal wine, so I came here to find out," Rulin explained. After listening to Rulin's words, Liu Chang'an's eyes flashed with excitement. He cleared his throat, pointed at his nose, and said, "To be honest, I'm also a teacher. But in my world, my practice is limited, but my theory is invincible. So, I want to join your academy and get the knowledge of this world. Maybe I can provide more help for your practice." Liu Chang'an smiled confidently. With his down-and-out image and temperament, he really looks like the kind of hidden and powerful person in martial arts novels. Rulin was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, "Okay, Mr. Yu, then please come back to the academy with us later. I will inform the leader of the situation, and I believe he will definitely agree. Now, let's go to the tavern together." "No. No." Liu Chang'an suddenly shook his head and refused. Rulin and others looked at him in confusion. Liu Chang'an sighed and said, "The tavern is a sad place for me. I don't want to go back to the tavern in a short time. I hope you can respect my wishes. I want to find out about my past. I also have many enemies in that world." Rulin looked at Liu Chang'an in doubt and had to say, "Okay. Then, let's find a place to rest first. I will also tell you about the situation in the tavern. Don't suffer any loss because you don't understand the rules of the tavern." Liu Chang'an secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If they went to the tavern to inquire about him, it would be difficult to explain. Even so, there are risks. After all, asking about Liu Chang'an's identity casually would definitely cause a landslide. After all, he is really a rat crossing the street now. Therefore, he must convince Rulin and others with his knowledge before they go to the tavern. In this way, they can consider their own ideas and will not easily ask about their identities. Fortunately, Liu Chang'an's understanding of the tavern is really enough to fool these people. On the other hand, the craze of rising to the top in one step in the tavern soon subsided. Especially the failure of Ma Hongjin, Oscar, 9 Wrong, and Daimu Bai's challenge made them retreat directly. Everyone didn't believe that they were stupid enough to ask for future strength directly. It was probably just an experience, or the strength in 10 or 20 years, but they still failed, which showed that the will of the young people was not good enough after all. Not every teenager can be as brave as Tang San. So, the adults in each family did not allow the children to rush like this, and they themselves did not dare to challenge like this. Seeing that the tavern fell into boredom again, Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly. He liked these people to make trouble, so he looked at Emperor Huntian and Xiao Wu. The enemies who were originally entangled and colliding in the fate line could now talk with a smile. With Yuan as a backer, Xiao Wu decided not to leave the tavern. Now Emperor Huntian can only support Xiao Wu. At this time, Liu Chang'an suddenly thought, why not go to Douluo Continent to see the scenery? As soon as this idea came out, Liu Chang'an looked at Queen Medusa. Just now, she said she wanted to be a guide. "Boss?" Kailin asked in confusion. Dai hugged Kailin's waist and whispered in her ear with a smile, "Sister, the boss is watching you. Kailin, can you take us to play nearby?" Liu Chang'an said with a smile. Kailin immediately agreed and chuckled. "Sure, wait, us? Are there others?" "Yes, there are old employees, just treat it as a welfare. Let's go out for a walk," Liu Chang'an said with a smile. The maids immediately showed surprise. The welfare of the tavern is too good. This time out, they will not believe that this is just for fun. Liu Chang'an is in a good mood, and he can sprinkle some things from his fingers. It is enough for them. Zhu Zhuqing and Zhu Zhuqing are happy to be with Liu Chang'an. Deming and Erming looked at each other, and Erming scratched his head and said, "Boss, are there us brothers?" "Of course." Liu Chang'an smiled. Chapter 296 King Lin. Liu Chang'an asked Queen Medusa to be a tour guide and take them to the surrounding area. As a result, the first stop was the Taga Desert, the nest of the Snape tribe. The old employees protested strongly. "We don't want to eat sand." "Yes. It's not fun here at all." Queen Medusa changed places. "This place is too boring." No employee thought it was interesting. Kailin chose the place because she wanted Dai to relive her memories and because she had a special feeling for Liu Chang'an to understand her former home. Liu Chang'an didn't have any objections. He asked the old employees to be patient and strolled around the snake tribe. This place is exotic anyway. Liu Chang'an had spoken. Who dared to object? Liu Chang'an thought for a while and said, "Give you some sunscreen and sandproof stuff." Liu Chang'an waved his hand, and a few beads flew out from behind and fell into the hands of the employees. They looked like pearls, but with a brighter luster and starlight inside. Wind-fixing beads. With it, they are not afraid of wind, sand and sunshine, and even sandstorms can't shake them at all. This is a real treasure. After visiting the snake tribe, Kailin took them to the city near the desert. Stone Desert City. When they came here, everyone was obviously much happier than in the desert. Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "You can play on your own. I will give you portal permissions and you can reunite at any time." Liu Chang'an is the truth that makes everyone play happily. However, except for the maid whose name is unknown, and the two rugmen Ming and Ermin, the other maids are unwilling to leave Liu Chang'an. Liu Chang'an shook his head helplessly, and he imposed a law of rewriting consciousness on everyone. When everyone sees them, no matter what they are doing, they will be normalized so that they will not look at them more, and turn around and forget. Zhu Zhuqing hugged Liu Chang'an's arm, and Zhu Zhuqing thought about it and hugged the other one. Douluo followed behind, looking at the two sisters, with envy flashing in his eyes from time to time. Kailin saw this scene and turned away, feeling that the Zhu sisters were showing off to her. Liu Chang'an was surrounded by beauties. Fortunately, he changed the rules, otherwise he would definitely cause a sensation based on the current scene. They chatted as they walked, mainly Liu Chang'an asking Kailin about the local customs and practices nearby. Then Zhu Zhuqing and the others joined in, not wanting Liu Chang'an to keep communicating with Kailin. Kailin snorted lightly, very arrogant, and didn't even look at these little girls. Just then, when they passed a stall on the side of the road, an anxious voice sounded in front of them. "Hey! Isn't this the little snake girl from the Desert Iron Mercenary Group? What a coincidence, I actually met you here. Why, you turned around and ran away without saying hello to me. Is that what the two brothers of the Xiao family taught you? Please let me go. I'm sorry, I'll leave now and not get in your way, beg me. Is that how your mother begged your father? Ha ha ha, little snake girl, I just realized that you were getting more and more beautiful as you get older. Do you want me to break your virginity?" The mangled laughter came. Liu Chang'an frowned, and before he could say anything, Kailin rushed over angrily, pushing the crowd to both sides. The pedestrians who were originally shoulder to shoulder were now directly knocked over by her and fell on both sides, and a burst of curses rang out, and therefore also revealed the source of the sound. It was a tall man who was bullying a little girl with green hair. The little girl was cute and lovely, and it was easy to make a deep impression at first sight. She was dressed in a light green elegant outfit. Although her body was small, it was strangely mature. She was convex where it should be convex, concave where it should be concave, plump where it should be plump, and slender where it should be slender. She just looked a little immature. She had a lovely and delicate oval face, like a beautiful porcelain doll. She looked timid, like a frightened little rabbit, which made people feel pity for her. Now that she was bullied by a strong man, she looked even more pitiful. But for some reason, the onlookers were just watching the fun and no one came forward to help. Kailin and Dai rushed over, one kicked the strong man down, and the other hugged the little girl and comforted her emotions. Strange, Zhu Zhuqing wondered. Douluo nodded and echoed. Yes, such a beautiful girl was bullied, how could no one stand up? Is it true that beauty is not valued in the Bibi Continent? Liu Chang'an checked the rules and fate line and knew the reason. Near the Taiga Desert, human women are occasionally raped by snake men. With a very low chance, women who have sex with snake men will become pregnant and give birth to children. But these babies with human and snake man blood are generally unlikely to live past 2 years old. Qinglin is an exception. She is already 13 or 14 years old. Because of her background, she has low self-esteem and is often bullied. "Ah, sister, did you hurt me?" Kailin grabbed Qinglin's wrist, looked at the dense snake scales on it, nodded slightly, and smiled. "Yes, you and me, Your eyes?" Kailin's face changed slightly, and he narrowed his eyes. Staring at Kailin's eyes, he felt disgusted. At this time, the world's most unique pupil, the green snake tricolor pupil, almost only appears in the descendants of humans and snake men. This kind of pupil is the nemesis of all snake-shaped monsters. Except for a very small number of snake-shaped monsters with pure ancient blood, they can be forcibly controlled. For humans or other monsters, it cannot be controlled, but it can pull out the soul and seize control of the body. When the green snake tricolor pupil matures, it can form a space inside the eye, and the controlled things can be stored in it. As the strength increases, the limit of the space will increase accordingly. However, the strength of the creatures collected in the space will be slowly absorbed and fed back to the owner. Liu Chang'an explained with a chuckle. Kai Lin's eyes flashed with hesitation. Should this kind of eye that is dangerous to the snake man be killed now to prevent future troubles? Liu Chang'an looked at her with a smile and did not stop her. Dai quickly held her sister's arm and whispered, "Sister, you scared little Qinglin, you see she's almost crying." Qinglin shook her head, tears in her eyes, and said unconfidently, I know the two beautiful sisters are good people and want to save Qinglin. Qinglin won't cry." Kaling let go of her hand. "From now on, you will follow me." "Ah? But I..." Qinglin hadn't finished speaking. A shout came from afar. "Qinglin is from Almoshi mercenary group. Who dares to bully her?" Chapter 297 Xiao Li's Challenge. Stop. A black-haired young man, who looked a bit like Xiao, ran over. In his hand was a long spear, with a green arc flashing on the tip of the spear. When he came over, he was stunned when he saw Queen Medusa. Queen Medusa's snake tail had now turned into legs. From the outside, she looked like a very beautiful woman. But she was so beautiful that she gave people a sense of danger. Xiao Li stared at Queen Medusa warily and asked, "Who are you? Why are you holding Qinglin? I want this little girl." Kai Lin said coldly. Xiao Li frowned when he heard this and said coldly, "She is a maid of our Motai mercenary group. You want her just because you want her? Do you take us seriously? Oh? It seems that you care about this little girl because you care about the face of your mercenary group." Kai Lin sneered. Xiao Li nodded and said, "Most of the reason is this. But these are not important. The people of our Motai mercenary group are not something you can control at will. 50,000 gold coins, this little girl is mine." Kai Lin said lightly. If Liu Chang'an hadn't been there, she wouldn't have bothered to talk to this guy, she would have just killed Qinglin and abducted him. No, maybe Qinglin would have been killed by her. Xiao Li was stunned for a moment. With the value of this little girl Qinglin, she was not worth 50,000 gold coins at all. This was a sure win, but compared to money, he cared more about face. So, Xiao Li said coldly, "I won't give Qinglin to you no matter how much money you pay." Stubborn. Kai Lin snorted coldly, and pink fighting spirit burst out of her body, and the strong momentum instantly slapped around. Bang! Xiao Li was not even a great fighting master, so how could he resist the power of Queen Medusa? He immediately knelt down, his face full of disbelief. A little-known town would actually come to a woman who made him unable to resist just by her momentum. It was too terrifying. Xiao Li stared at Queen Medusa, but there was no fear in his eyes. He still held the spear tightly in his hand, as if he was still thinking about how to retaliate. "You don't accept it?" Kai Lin raised his eyebrows and asked. Xiao Li said coldly, "Nonsense. Of course I don't accept it. I'm not as good as you now, but wait a few years, I will definitely surpass you. Then, stubborn. Go to hell." Kai Lin raised her hand and was about to make a fatal move. Liu Chang'an suddenly grabbed her wrist and smiled. "Give him a chance." "I see a firm heart in this young man's eyes." Kai Lin glanced at Liu Chang'an and said yes. Kai Lin released her aura to suppress Xiao Li. As soon as Xiao Li got out of trouble, he immediately retreated dozens of meters and stared at the two of them vigilantly. Just now, when Kai Lin released her aura, everyone except Xiao Li ran away. Xiao Li had never seen Liu Chang'an and the women beside him. Powerful, mysterious. Xiao Li could only use these two words to describe them. Unexpectedly, he did not feel the slightest hostility from Liu Chang'an. On the contrary, he found that there was a trait in the other party that attracted him, as if he could be transformed from the other party. What was it? That's why he did not leave and watched them from afar despite the danger. "Little brother, do you want to defeat her?" Liu Chang'an held Kai Lin's hand, raised it, and asked with a smile. Xiao Li nodded immediately and said, "Of course. Today's humiliation will be repaid tomorrow. Actually, there is no need to wait until tomorrow. Come here, I'll give you a chance. You should have heard of taverns and worldly bars. You can challenge now, and you can get such an opportunity with just 3 gold coins." Liu Chang'an said with a smile. Xiao Li was stunned for a moment and looked at them in surprise. Kai Ling glared at him coldly. Xiao Li shrank his neck. That woman was too cruel, but now that the man held her hand and stalked her, she didn't seem to be angry, right? It seemed that she was even happier. Listening to Liu Chang'an's words, Xiao Li also fell into a brief hesitation. With the joint promotion of the major clans, Shimo City naturally also had news of the tavern, but the worldly wine that could fulfill all wishes was too outrageous, so Xiao Li did not go. Now that Liu Chang'an suddenly mentioned it, he was willing to believe it. Only 3 gold coins? Any wish can be made. Xiao Li shouted and asked. Liu Chang'an smiled and said, yes. The price of the first challenge of the worldly wine is 3 gold coins. After that, it will always increase tenfold. And your wishes are unlimited. But remember, the greater the wish, the greater the difficulty of the challenge. The penalty for failure is also higher. So, are you willing to challenge once? Liu Chang'an asked. Xiao Li pondered for a moment, and an unprecedented throbbing appeared. He obeyed the call of instinct and walked quickly towards Liu Chang'an. I want to challenge. I want to become stronger. Return today's humiliation. Xiao Li stared at Qian fiercely, and at the same time took out 3 gold coins and handed them to Liu Chang'an. Liu Chang'an gave him 3 nights of worldly wine. Xiao Li swallowed them all without saying a word. 10 seconds later, he exuded green doqi and showed surprise on his face. I became Douang. Xiao Li looked at Liu Chang'an in disbelief, still wondering, I actually became Douang. A step to heaven. Is this true? Of course it's true. Liu Chang'an smiled and nodded. Ha ha ha, that's great, then what am I afraid of? You woman, I will tolerate you, Xiao Li sneered. Before he finished laughing, a more powerful force suddenly pressed down. Plop, Xiao Li knelt down again. How could a mere Douang be the opponent of a high-level Douzong? You are not a Doulin. How is that possible? Xiao Li was confused. He thought Queen Medusa was a Doulin, so he wished to reach the level of Douang, but the other party turned out to be higher than the Douang level. When did I say that I was a Doulin? How dare you, a little ant, guess about me? Qian sneered. Dai secretly looked at Qian's wrist being held by Liu Chang'an. Her skin was tense, but she was still reluctant to use force, as if she was afraid that Liu Chang'an would remember to let go. It was a big contrast to her majestic appearance. Okay, don't bother with him. Qian, right. You should follow this big sister from now on. When you're with her, no one will bully you. You don't need to feel inferior anymore. Liu Chang'an said with a smile. Qian nodded in confusion, but she didn't understand the situation yet. Zhu Zhuqing and other girls looked at each other and realized the problem. The most beautiful woman in the world, chosen by the boss, seems to have fallen in love with the boss. Now, they are likely to have more competitors. Zhu Zhuqing glanced at Douyan and squinted her eyes in thought. Instead of giving it to Queen Medusa, an outsider, why not give it to Douyan? Can she do a favor? Chapter 298a. Wrong move. After a day of strolling around the streets, Liu Chang'an led the girls from Shimo City to the capital of the Jiama Empire. The main point was to travel 1,000 miles a day. In the evening, they did not return to the tavern. They found a hotel in the capital to stay overnight. How to allocate rooms became a problem. Zhu Zhuqing and Zhu Zhuqing sisters must fight with Liu Chang'an all night. So Liu Chang'an asked for 11 rooms. The main point was fairness, 1 room for each person. However, in the actual check-in, it depends on each person. The Zhu sisters did not return to their own rooms, but went directly into Liu Chang'an's room. In the room, there is nothing to say, changing the environment is just more exciting. During the intermission, Zhu Zhuqing lay beside her, her exquisite body lying horizontally, and said, Chang'an, did you see it? Douyan, that little woman, has been waiting for you for a long time, don't you want to give her a little sweet taste? Zhu Zhuqing put on her clothes and just went downstairs to get some water. When she heard this, she looked back at Zhu Zhuqing. Why did this stinky sister start looking for someone again? Liu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Zhuqing indifferently and said, why are you asking her for a favor again? Zhu Zhuqing hugged Liu Chang'an's calf, gently massaged the muscles on it, and said with a smile, Chang'an, don't I feel sorry for her? You won't lose anything if you accept her, and she really likes you. Liu Chang'an chuckled, looked at Zhu Zhuqing's silly smile, and saw her real intention from her eyes. In 1,000 words, she was just afraid that she would take Queen Medusa. For Zhu Zhuqing, Douyan was far less threatening than Queen Medusa, so she chose the lesser of 2 evils. After taking Douyan, Zhu Zhuqing thought that the 2 sisters had an advantage over Douyan, and she was also Liu Chang'an's favorite woman, but if she changed to Queen Medusa, it would be dangerous. After all, Liu Chang'an handpicked the most beautiful woman in the world. That kind of beauty, even women would be moved. If Liu Chang'an got it, would he not be obsessed? Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "Your worries are unnecessary. Queen Medusa is not that kind of woman. She won't offer herself to him." Zhu Zhuqing snorted and said, "That's not necessarily true. I think she likes the boss very much." "Boss, let's not talk about her. Let's talk about Douluo. Really, she has liked you for a long time." On the other side, Dai slipped into Kyling's room. Seeing Kylin changed into red silk pajamas, Dai covered her mouth and smiled, and whispered, "Sister, are you thinking about the boss? If you like him, then go. The boss will definitely not refuse you." Kylin's face changed, and she frowned and said, "What are you talking about? Why should I think about him?" Dai smiled and hugged Kylin's neck from behind, her face pressed against Kylin's face. The two faces were extremely similar, one cold and beautiful, and the other innocent. Dai smiled softly. "Sister, don't be shy. Since you like him, just do it boldly." Kylin snorted coldly and said, "Like? Who said I like him? It's not easy to get this opportunity. And the boss asked you to be a tour guide, he must have ideas about you. As long as you go, the boss will definitely understand everything." Dai said patiently. She has discovered that her sister does like the boss. It's just because she is arrogant and refuses to express it. If I don't push her, who knows when her sister will take the key step. Dai continued, and if sister has a relationship with the boss, the Snape tribe will really be invincible. No one dares to offend our Snape tribe. This sentence touched Kyling's heart, and her eyes flashed. She found a way out for herself. Seeing this, Dai yawned and said, "Okay sister, I'll go back first, I'm so sleepy." Not long after Dai left, Kyling got up and left the room. She walked slowly towards Liu Chang'an's room. Just when she turned a corner and saw Liu Chang'an's room, a voice came from inside. "Zhu, thank you so much. Don't worry, I will never forget you." Douluo's voice sounded. Then it was Zhu Zhuqing's. "It's a small matter. We sisters have seen your sincerity to Chang'an." The sound of opening and closing the door sounded. Kylin bit her lower lip. There were other women. Sharing a man with other women, and in one night, she couldn't accept it, and a look of loss appeared on her face. If they came earlier, would it be different? And Liu Chang'an was the same. Why did she have to take the initiative? Couldn't she come by herself? If Liu Chang'an took the initiative to come, would she still resist? Kylin left disappointed. This day was destined to be a sleepless night. In fact, Liu Chang'an took the maid out to play, and some people followed secretly. But because Liu Chang'an could directly flash to different places, many people lost them. For example, a certain female pope. Now she is still in Xingmo City, and she can't find Liu Chang'an and his party, and she is very confused. Strange, where did they go? Why did they disappear? Did they transfer instantly? Bibi Dong was above the city, sensing the breath below, and her face was embarrassed. She followed out, in fact, just to find an opportunity to break the window paper, pack herself up and send herself to Liu Chang'an's bed. It turns out that although you have to wait for thousands of years, let time dial used other negative effects, only feelings are left. But she is a love-brained person, and she likes Liu Chang'an more and more, and she can't bear it. Now I think about giving myself to him, but it's a pity that there has been no opportunity. After this carpet search, Liu Chang'an was not found, but his daughter who had come here with great effort was found. Why is Xiao here? Is she here to see me? Isn't she in love with Chang'an too? Bibi Dong's face changed. If she was the same as herself, it would be too absurd. Can mother and daughter still be competitors? No, I have to find a way to test her. Bibi Dong decided secretly. On the other side, Deming and Erming were in the same room. They rarely started to talk about business. Erming, Aunt Ru's soul has been resurrected now, and her body will be shaped soon. Then she can be fully resurrected. We were taken care of by Aunt Ru when we were young, and now it's time to repay Aunt Ru. Deming said in a deep voice. Erming looked at Deming and said, Deming, I listened to you. You tell me how we should repay Aunt Ru. No matter what we do, I'm willing to do it. First, we have to help Aunt Ru get a body and revive perfectly. Second, Aunt Ru cares about Xiao the most. We have to find a way to give Xiao a chance so that she can run for the maid. Deming said. Maid, will Xiao be willing? Erming scratched his head in confusion. Everything depends on human effort. Chapter 299 Visiting Wutan City. Liu Chang'an's view on women actually depends entirely on his mood. At his level, it would be a bit too repressive to say that he would experience all kinds of hardships together from the beginning like other time travelers, and the feelings would gradually heat up. Arrogantly speaking, Liu Chang'an can directly rewrite the other party's cognition from the past when he likes any woman. A woman who was still a stranger to Liu Chang'an the previous second may love her to death the next second. And Liu Chang'an, who has such great power, still respects the woman. At least he won't be hit by an iron fist, right? After being Zhu Zhuqing, Liu Chang'an was refreshed, and the little green snake was limp on the side. A big bat sat on the side, poking her and pinching there. The little green snake gave her a charming look, humming, and did not refuse. She was able to get what she wanted, thanks to these two black cats. "Boss, how long are we going to be out there?" Dou Yan asked with narrowed eyes. "How long? A few days. When you get bored, you can go back," Liu Chang'an said with a smile. "Then I may never get tired of it," Dou Yan said with a chuckle. Zhu Zhuqing pursed her lips, as if she underestimated this green snake, which was so good at licking. Zhu Zhuqing hugged Liu Chang'an's arm and hummed. "Back to the tavern, there are still so many women thinking about Chang'an. Now it's the best, there are only a few of us next to Chang'an." Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly and said, "You guys take a break, tomorrow, go to a small town to have a look. As long as there is Chang'an, anywhere is fine," Zhu Zhuqing said immediately. The next day, at dawn, Liu Chang'an took Zhu Zhuqing and other women to Wutan City. Wutan City is a relatively remote place. As the saying goes, there are strong demon winds under the temple and many turtles in the shallow pond. This place is a tripod, and the top three families coexist. The strongest family is the Xiao family where Xiao Yan was born. The patriarch of the family, Xiao Zhen, is a 5-star great fighting master. It looks inconspicuous, but this family gave birth to a husband and wife emperor. When Liu Chang'an watched the animation of Douluo Continent in his previous life, he was quite interested in this place. Now it's just right to come and see it in person. In front of the Xiao mansion. It happened that the patriarch of the Jili family was bringing their chief alchemist to the Xiao mansion to find trouble and confront the three elders of the Xiao family. "Our patriarch is not here today, so you want to come here to make trouble?" the elder said angrily. Jili sneered, "Even if he is here, I will ask him. Besides, it's ridiculous to believe in some illusory worldly wine. Wait until our patriarch comes back, and you," the elder gritted his teeth. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing couldn't listen anymore and said coldly, "What's wrong with worldly wine? Do you have any objections to worldly wine?" Everyone turned their heads and saw Liu Chang'an and the women, followed by two strong men. The ones who gave them the strongest sense of oppression and made them dare not speak out were actually Duming and Derming. These two strong men are not easy to mess with. Jilbai frowned, and Chen Chen said, "This is a feud between us and the Xiao family. We're from the Tavern. If you don't agree, you can come and fight us, right?" Zhu Zhuqing sneered and pointed at Jilbai's nose. Before Jilbai could speak, Liu XI, the chief alchemist beside him, couldn't help it. Looking at the woman next to Liu Chang'an, his eyes almost reddened, and he covered his mouth and wiped his saliva. "Beautiful, too beautiful. How can there be so many beauties in the world? Chief Jil, I want," Liu XI looked at the women lustfully. "Disgusting guy. Block your stinky face." Kailin suddenly snorted coldly. She was angry because she didn't get on Liu Chang'an's bed as she wished last night. Now she was stared at by this disgusting guy, and her anger rose all of a sudden. With a wave of her hand, she shot out a red fighting spirit. Bang! Liu XI took off instantly and slammed into the gate to the Xiao mansion. He fell to the ground and vomited blood. It looked like he was breathing out more than breathing in. Actually, it was because Liu Chang'an was beside him. Otherwise, Liu XI would have been crushed to ashes long ago if he had looked at Kailin with such a disgusting look. How could he have left a breath? Kailin's move stunned everyone present. Deming and Derming were just intimidated, but when Kailin made a move, it was real fighting spirit. Those own-level masters, Xiao Jie and Jie Bai, all subconsciously held their breath. With this intensity, they would probably die if he blew a breath, right? Jie Bai didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. He bent down, lowered his head, quietly helped Liu XI up, bowed to Kailin and others, showed a flattering smile, and carefully took Liu XI away. The three elders of the Xiao family saw this funny scene, and there was no contempt on their faces. If it were them, they probably wouldn't care about Liu XI and would just run away. After a moment of silence, the elder said, "Senior, you." Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. I don't mean to embarrass you. I'm just curious about your Xiao family, so I came to see you. Of course, if you want to challenge the mortal wine, you can come." Your clan leader and his son challenged the mortal wine and succeeded. As he said that, Liu Chang'an led the women into the Xiao mansion. Several elders of the Xiao family looked at each other and exchanged opinions quickly. This senior said he wanted to challenge the mortal wine, so we must not let him down. Call out all the family members immediately and let them challenge the mortal wine later. Yes, yes, yes. And the clan leader and his friends succeeded in challenging the mortal wine. Will there be any favors? In short, the Xiao family must treat it with all their heart. The three elders of the Xiao family quickly made arrangements. The elder accompanied him, and the other elders began to implement it. The elder caught up with Liu Chang'an, but saw that Liu Chang'an stopped in Xiao Yan's room. Liu Chang'an said with a smile, "This place should be Xiao Yan's room." It's interesting to say that when Xiao Yan was a child, when he just appeared Doki, in order to verify the properties of Doki, he actually sneaked into Xiao Zun's room in the middle of the night and used Doki to warm her body. Ah? Is he a little pervert? Zhu Zhuqing said in surprise. Yan nodded and said, "Yes, it's hard not to be suspicious when he does that at such a young age." The maid without a name said timidly, I don't think children should have any bad intentions. Maybe Xiao Yan just wants Xiao Zuna to feel better. What do you think, boss?" Kailin looked at Liu Chang'an. Liu Chang'an shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter. Just listen to it for fun. If Dopo hadn't fallen into the tavern, I would like this world very much. I have read about Xiao Yan's fate. It's like a legendary story." The great elder lowered his presence in the back and was slightly surprised when he heard this. "Xiao Yan?" Chapter 300 Xiao Family Challenge. "Senior, the Xiao Yan you were talking about, is he the young patriarch of our family?" The elder asked cautiously with a smile. The Xiao family must serve a strong man like Liu Chang'an well. They don't want him to give any benefits to the Xiao family, as long as he doesn't get angry and destroy the Xiao family. Now he took the opportunity to ask, but his heart was lifted. Liu Chang'an nodded slightly and smiled. "Yes. The Xiao Yan I am talking about is naturally the young patriarch of your family. Well, if the tavern hadn't come, he would be the second person in your Douluo Continent to break through to the Dou Empire in 1,000 years. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The elder was stunned. Dou Emperor, that is a legendary existence, they dare not even dream of it. After all, their Xiao family patriarch is just a great Dou master. Now tell him that the young patriarch has become a useless person and has been discredited by the broken engagement and has brought discredit to the family will become a Dou Empire in the future. This is too split. Could it be that the senior is making fun of himself? I'm not kidding. You'll know when they come back. However, because in the original Fate line, Xiao Yan's enemy, Emperor Hun Tian, already knew of his existence. So when Xiao Yan will come back is still unknown." Liu Chang'an said with a smile. The elder pounded his head and fell into confusion. At this time, Liu Chang'an took the girls to the place where the fighting power was tested, and came to the strange-shaped test magic stone tablet. The girls looked at the stone tablet curiously. "You can try it," Liu Chang'an said with a smile. Zhu Zhuqing was the most mischievous. She immediately hit the soul power on it. Well, there was no reaction. "It's boring, it turns out to be just a decoration." Zhu Zhuqing shook his head and said. Zhu Zhuqing and other girls also stepped forward to test one by one, but there was no reaction. Dai was also eager to try, but was stopped by Kailin, who rolled his eyes at her and said, "Your Dehuang level fighting spirit will break this broken stone tablet." Dai stuck out her tongue and giggled. Kailin shook her head helplessly and sighed secretly. Since last night, she has been holding back a lot of anger. She just injured Liu the 11th and now scolded Dai because of this anger. To put it bluntly, she has figured it out. Liu Chang'an smiled and said, "Since we have come to the Douluo Continent, it would be unreasonable if we don't know how to use Doki. How about this? I will give you all Doki that is one level higher than soul power." As soon as Liu Chang'an finished speaking, everyone changed. Doki of the same color as soul power emerged from their bodies. Erming laughed and said, "What a powerful thing. I feel like I can beat a god to death now. Be honest." Deming said unhappily. "If you get the benefits, just hold it back. Don't you know whose light you are borrowing? You are still emphasizing your presence here. Aren't you afraid of being hated by the boss ladies?" Zhu Zhuqing clapped his hands and said, Battle Ki seems to be more malleable than soul power, which means that we don't need to hunt soul beasts, and we can learn soul skills by ourselves, fighting skills. That should be the case, and my Battle Ki can in turn promote soul power. The two powers promote each other, and our cultivation speed can increase a lot. Yan said in surprise. Kailin didn't think much of this cultivation. She coveted Liu Chang'an. Thinking back to what I've said, if she became Liu Chang'an's woman, the Snape people would never be in danger. So, should I really take the initiative again? Kailin was still hesitant. She didn't know what Liu Chang'an thought. Everyone thought that Liu Chang'an ranked her as the most beautiful in the world, and he must have some ideas about her, but she was more greedy. Can the possessive desire for beauty turn into love? Queen Medusa is not as cold and ruthless as rumored. She is passionate in her heart. At this time, the third elder suddenly ran over and whispered with the first elder. The elder nodded slightly, then looked at Liu Chang'an and asked, Senior, there are a group of people in our Xiao family who want to accept the challenge of the worldly wine. What do you think? Bring them in. Liu Chang'an smiled. So the second elder led a group of people in, men and women, old and young, and even brought children of 5 or 6 years old. These people looked at Liu Chang'an in fear. Liu Chang'an's mouth twitched, and he shook his head and said, You seem to have made a mistake. I don't mean to force you. Challenging the worldly wine can certainly make all wishes come true, but it is extremely difficult and few people can succeed. The punishment for failure may be light or heavy. For example, people who don't have a firm will do not need to challenge to prevent being punished too severely. The elder nodded repeatedly when he heard this, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He misunderstood the elder. The elder didn't want to cheat their Xiao family, but was completely voluntary. The great elder quickly shouted to the tribesmen. Did you hear clearly? Those who don't have a strong wish and will, leave immediately and don't waste the senior's time. Now, there were only more than 20 people left out of the hundreds of people, and most of them were young people. A teenager couldn't help asking, Grandpa, can our challenge for this earthly wine be real? Fulfill all wishes or something? Shut up. Apologize to the senior. The great elder shouted sternly. The teenager was startled, shrank his neck, and whispered, I'm sorry, senior, I said the wrong thing. Liu Chang'an shook his head slightly and said, Great elder, don't be nervous, we are not man-eating beasts. We have no ill will towards you. Of course, I can tell you for sure that the earthly wine challenge is real. If you have enough will, you can even ascend to heaven in one step. Senior, can Xiao Yan really become a Dou Emperor in the future? Xiao Yu looked at Liu Chang'an eagerly and asked. Thinking back to the time when the stinky kid who peeked at himself taking a bath could actually become the legendary Dou Emperor, the sense of separation was too strong. Liu Chang'an nodded and smiled, yes. He will become Dou in less than 50 years. Of course, that was in the original world line. Now that the tavern is here, the fate of all of you will be affected. Xiao Yu nodded and asked curiously, Senior, can I become Dou? That depends on your will. In your original world line, you will become Dou and your strength will be greatly improved because of Xiao Yan's becoming Dou. But you yourself will not become Dou. Xiao Yu clenched his fists, I am so unwilling. Senior, if I want to become Dou, is my hope great? What do you think? Liu Chang'an asked back with a smile. Xiao Yu sighed and said with a sad face, I definitely can't bear this hardship, alas, except for Xiao Yu, the other disciples of the Xiao family were very timid. They had never seen much of the world. Among them, Xiao Mei, who wanted to act like a spoiled child with Liu Chang'an the most, was only bullying in the nest of the Xiao family. Seeing Liu Chang'an, a strong man who was treated with caution by the family, she did not dare to cross the line. Senior, are there any other rules and requirements for our challenge? Xiao Yu asked with a smile again. Yes, Zhu Zhuqing answered first. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.